Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jim Cornette Experience, where today we're going to talk about the best wrestlers in their 30s, 40 years ago, and the rotten wrestlers of every age today. All that and more, but joining me, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's 39 years old, and he's sticking to it. The great Brian Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. 39. I actually just the other day got a copy of the biography of Jack Benny written by his daughter, I believe.
Was she born when he was 39 years old?
I think everything happened when he was 39, yes. There's a part of the audience that gets the reference, and there's another part that has no idea what we're talking about at all.
No, some people are like, Jack Benny, who's that? The best Jack Benny line ever. And it took him 30 years to set it up because of his gimmick, being a miser, being cheap, being very careful with his money. Finally, he comes out on stage and a robber comes up behind him with a gun and sticks it in his back. And he says, "Your money or your life?" And Benny just gives the look to the camera and the people start laughing. And he just looks at it for 30 seconds. And the robber says, "I said your money or your life." I'm thinking. See, I don't have Jack Benny's delivery.
He could just do a look, too, and get that big reaction.
We need more of that. We always try to have fun here at the top of the program, and we're going to have fun today, I promise you, because we're going to talk about some silly people doing silly things, but we're not going to be silly at the start. Because I've been pissed off for 2 days and I might as well get it off my goddamn chest. And at least I'm not alone this time, because there's a lot of people that are pissed off. And we've heard from a lot of them, and it's all over the news and all over the television and all over everybody's thoughts. And so we might as well address it, because if anybody don't want to hear me talking politics or current events today, you know what? Below me. Because we need to talk about this shit, because it's gotten serious enough that everybody needs to be talking about it. Because you can't just turn your head and act like in this country, this is normal and acceptable and justifiable. And if people don't get mad and start saying things about it and go out and vote when the proper time comes and call attention to this shit, then we're going to be the shithole country that Donald Trump said we were and wants us to be, and is actively trying to cause that. So I think we got to recognize it. And I know, again, and what's the rule of a babyface promo, Brian? The babyface should always say what the fans want to say about that no good dirty heel, and don't have the goddamn platform. And they speak vicariously through their babyface hero. Well, if you ain't on my side on this one today, folks, then I guess fuck you then. So I'm speaking for a lot of people who are goddamn fed up with what we're having to put up with in this country because of the unfortunate situation that we've been put in because of gullible people believing bullshit. So now it's come to masked armed federal agents are murdering United States citizens on the street, in public, in broad daylight, on video, by shooting them in the face. And then their representatives or their superiors, such as that soulless ghoul bitch Christy Nome and the head pig in charge himself, come out and call the woman the mother of the orphan child now. She's got 3 kids, but the one she's got with her last husband who died is now officially an orphan. Call her a domestic terrorist. to slander her on the way out. And I know there's people around the world that listen to this show that live in normal societies where facts are kind of accepted as fucking facts. And they don't understand what the fuck is going on with us over here, these Americans, along with a lot of our former allies around the world and their governments. What the fuck's going on with those Americans? And we've been talking about the ICE patrol and assuming that everybody around the globe knows what's going on over here. So I don't want to leave because I think, Brian, I know 20% of the Cornette's collectibles customers, maybe 25, are from international markets. I think it's a higher or at least similar percentage for the podcast that are in UK or Japan, for fuck's sake, or all around the globe. Remember Australia. The guy from the Isle of Malta, Australia. So what we have here is the previous big lie, the one that everybody talks about, Donald Trump's big lie. That's what the journalists and the authors of the books about it and everybody have come to start calling it, when he wouldn't admit that he lost the 2020 election and he was slapped down in every court of law. Not only didn't have proof, never even had any evidence, just all of his lawyers were disbarred. But in the process, he made such noise and such stink that the rubes that buy his bullshit believed him. And still to this day, many of them do, despite everything. And they call that the big lie. But I think when they write the history books, that's not going to be the big one. The biggest lie, the one that's going to get more people killed and more people injured and more fucking property destroyed and more shit go on needlessly and unnecessarily, is the bullshit story that he has told these lunatics about the immigrants. And just before we talk about this specific incident, we have to tell the people who don't live in bizarro world how we got here for just a second. And I swear to God, I'm not made. Brian, if I say anything that you haven't seen on the news, if I exaggerate anything, I want you to stop me. Donald Trump and his minions and henchmen and mouthpieces and mouth organs have told people in this country for a long time now that the Biden administration not only knew but allowed all the countries that Donald Trump and the maggots are mad at, from Mexico all the way down through South America, just every place that they look like that. He has said that they let not millions, but tens of millions. One time I heard him say 25 million undocumented aliens into this country, that they emptied the prisons and the insane asylums and they sent us lunatics and rapists and murderers and cleaned their country and sent them all up here. And the Democrats just said, oh, okay, well, they're good. They'll vote for us. That's basically in a nutshell the story you have heard told, is it not?
That is certainly what they've been saying, yes.
And they believe this. I'm not saying that a murderer or a rapist or a lunatic didn't get through, because Lord knows we had enough homegrown to begin with. They're everywhere. But these people believe that that's what they all are. They came from the gangs and the murderers and the rapists, and they ate the dogs and the cats. That was strategic, I think, now on their part, to come up with that eating the dogs and cats story where the immigrants were eating the pets in Ohio, because it made it so ridiculous to normal people that they scoffed at they thought he jumped the shark and it's all bullshit now. Nobody's going to believe this. His suckers still believed it. He'll believe anything. So now you've got a large group of gullible people in this country who believe that all the immigrants or people who look like immigrants who have come to this country were from an insane asylum or a prison or a member of a goddamn violent gang. And then this is where the ICE comes in, because these people are so scared that, and boy, it'd be a reason to be scared if any of that shit was true. But they're so scared that they want him to hire these fat, obnoxious. I saw the other day the perfect description on Twitter. An ICE agent is somebody too stupid to become a prison guard. These untrained assholes who want to compensate for their tiny dicks by fondling their large guns, who want to push people around because they've got a grudge against society. And they can put masks on and cosplay as soldiers. And the only problem is, the difference between them and real soldiers is the people the soldiers are fighting back. They just get these ICE fucks get to go out in the street and just push people around. The videos have been going on for months. They're dragging pregnant women down the sidewalk. They're breaking people's windshields and windows and pulling them out of cars that are citizens and kneeling on grandmothers. And they shot the priest in the head with a fucking pepper gas ball. And it's insane. You know what kind of element you're getting to apply for this job, and they're giving out big signing bonuses. And then, now that he has manufactured a goddamn hatred for an entire, not even race of just a large swath of people and fear of them, and then he fucking satisfies these goddamn rednecks' gun fetish by having this fat meal team 6 ready to stand by and go push people around. And then the best part of it all, he announces that he's going to send these people to all the cities that are run under Democratic administrations, where the mayor's a Democrat or the governor's a Democrat or somebody who has opposed him. And he tells people Portland's on fire. You see people tweeting pictures from like a fucking street music festival in Portland with flowers going, it's burning, man. He sends them where they are not needed because he says crime is out of control, and all officials in the local municipalities are said, no, crime's down. We don't need this. You're going to aggravate people. And then he sends them in and wants to create problems to distract from his constant allegations of pedophilia being leveled against him, as well as the war crimes of taking over fucking random countries for their oil without congressional approval, shit like that. He wants the riots and the people and the chaos to distract from that, and also to get even with the goddamn people that are trying to stop him. So it's worked to varying degrees in different places. They've been in Charlotte. They were in Los Angeles. They're still in Portland, which, by the way, we can't even get into this, but they just shot 2 more people in Portland, but we don't even know any details yet. We'll stick on the one that happened yesterday. So apparently in Minneapolis, they're in this neighborhood. And I'm not talking about the neighborhood. It's a fucking neighborhood. There are houses and front yards, and it's a nice wide street, and blah, blah, blah. And there's a SUV or some type of smaller SUV vehicle, you see on the video, parked in the, not parked, but pulled sideways in the street, stopped. We don't know, conflicting stories on whether this woman was trying to warn her neighbors or was just caught in the middle of the traffic because she had just apparently dropped her kid off to school. But if she was trying to block someone off or warn someone, she's sitting there in a vehicle, not moving, unarmed. All of a sudden, here comes the meal team, and they surround her vehicle. One of them is pulling on her door. Her window is open, driver window, pulling on her door like they're going to open the door and fucking jerk her out of there. She sees other people masked, getting her, screaming, get out of the fucking car. She backs up as she's going, and I've been in this position, by the way, with a variety of people pulling on the door and etc. And you don't see everybody around you. You back up and you pull out. And when she backed up like a couple of feet and pulled out to get away from this guy, another guy was in front of the car. As he gets around the front of it, he just pulls his gun and shoots her in the fucking head. I don't know how many times he hit her, but he shot her 3 times. Or shot 3 times. And of course, it kills her pretty instantly. But the car is still going and goes like 40 or 50 more feet and crashes into 2 other cars and a telephone pole. And people are screaming. One woman is screaming, you just fucking killed my neighbor. And there's a doctor screaming, can I check a pulse? No, and they're cordoning people off from going to the fucking car. He's like, I'm a physician. Can I? No, get away. We got our own medics. There were no medics. People are screaming, where are the fucking medics? Where? We got them back at headquarters. As soon as we find that woman's head, we'll take it over there and let them check it. So then again, apparently there's other footage I've seen of them carrying this woman. They blurred the body, but they wouldn't let the ambulance people treat her right there because the people were still crowded around like, what the fuck? You just killed this woman that lives over here across the street or whatever the fuck. And they made the ambulance people carry this woman down the sidewalk and around the corner. And then you see them give them the chest compressions and shit, like where they can't see it. And without missing a beat, within 30 minutes, not only has that douchebag and the Ice Barbie gotten on there and said this woman was disorderly and dangerous and tried to run over one of the agents with her car, and he used his training and acted in self-defense. She's a domestic terrorist. But pig shit actually said that the woman ran over the agent. He's got out of the hospital, but he's lucky to be alive. He never went down. He never went to a knee. And here's another thing. You know, they always said you can't sue City Hall, but I hope to God that all of my tax dollars and all of everybody else's for the next 20 years goes to paying the families that this motherfucker has tortured when they file lawsuits during his overall time in office. But the people can see this video. These people have come and swarmed her and tried to pull her out of the fucking car, and she's trying to get the fuck out of there. And even the chief of police of Louisville came out and said, well, it violates a lot of law enforcement protocols, especially don't get yourself in front of the fucking car. But nevertheless, so she's dead. And as I said, apparently she's got a 6-year-old child that was with her ex-husband that died a couple of years ago. So that now the grandparents are having to come to get this kid. They've had memorials. They've had protests. And by the way, before that they could even protest this enough to where that the ICE agents started pepper spraying these protesters. After they murdered this woman, they went across town and tear gassed the goddamn high school kids. Did you see that video, Brian?
I saw the video, and then I saw the video of Governor Jesse Ventura visiting that school because it turns out that was his former high school.
Yes, and I thought it was Robbinsdale, but it's Robinson. Robbinsdale is where Gagne and Brunzell and those guys went. A lot of
No,
the Kurt Hennig, but
it was Roosevelt.
Jesse was Roosevelt. I'm sorry, This was Roosevelt. I knew it was one of those presidents, or you remember President Robinson. Anyway, yeah, Jesse had to show up to say, I just want to support these people because they not only tear gassed the parking lot and the students. And you see one of the fucking kids threw a snowball at one of the ICE agents, and he responded with the pepper ball gun and tried to shoot the kid right in the fucking face with it. But they also arrested 2 members of the faculty that were trying to help the kids. And that was before they even had a chance to organize the protest over the murder the previous morning.
I don't even know if you know the answer to this. What were they doing there? Were all of those ICE agents there to apprehend a student? Like, what was the reason they were there?
Apparently, and so you can't trust this, some of the right-wing aficionados are trying to say, well, they were chasing a criminal and ended up at the high school. Okay, well, what the fuck again? Why does that mean that? Because there's all the kids, the video, all the kids and the teachers, and there's a woman screaming, "Get back! I don't want you to get hurt!" to whoever's shooting with the fucking camera phone, as all the kids are, and they're firing off fucking tear gas at all the fucking kids. Is the one? Are they chasing Noriega? Or is maybe let the one fucking undocumented drywall guy go instead of tear gassing the high school? You think?
I wonder if they have a lawsuit.
Everybody, well, that's the problem. And again, for our out of country fans, the fucking Vance, that creepy goddamn Muppet weirdo, has already, well, ICE has complete immunity in the, execution of their duties. Execution of the people, more like. And they won't let the authorities in Minnesota cooperate or be involved in the investigation. The FBI is going to investigate ICE, which means we are going to investigate and see if we did anything wrong, and then we will tell you. And here's something else. I know I'm older than you, Brian, but you study history. If you've ever heard anything like this, the mayor of Minneapolis got on television and said, I have a message to the people of ICE and Kristi Noem. Get the fuck out of Minneapolis. It's the mayor telling the federal government, get the fuck out of here. And then Tim Walz, the governor, who was Kamala Harris's running mate. So old dipshit Donnie really hates Tim Walz. He had to come out on television again and say, okay, I understand if you wanted to get at me, you got me. You have gotten me, sir. And now I beg you, please leave the citizens of Minnesota alone. And still, the fucking dipshit morons with their heads in the sand or stuck up their ass or stuck in between this guy's dick and balls or wherever they're stuck. Well, but it's the Democrats. It's the Democrats. That's why they're saying it's the Democrats. It's common sense. It's fucking people locally trying to run a city that there was no problem until the Gestapo landed. And now there's big problems. And there was a protest here in Louisville last night with hundreds of people downtown over goddamn what happened in Minneapolis to 1,200 miles away. Because everybody's pissed. And again, you can't even stopping crime. There was no crime more than normal crime, which is everywhere, until you brought it. That's again what all the city officials everywhere they've gone are saying. Either our crime was down, or there was no problem, or we didn't have a gang issue, or whatever, until this started. But he knew that there weren't 25 million rapists and murderers and criminals and gang members. So they're trying to find them. They're trying to find anybody. They're trying to find the guy that's been here for 15 years that does landscaping and hadn't done anything to anybody. Yeah, they detained. Oh my! I can't remember whether the kid was a male or female, boy or girl, I should say. But this woman and her kid, they're Native Americans, Indians. It's the reason why a lot of Indian gimmicks in wrestling were Mexican and or Hispanic wrestlers, because they do have some similar looks and they could get by with it. They fucking tackled them and detained them. Not only were they U.S. citizens, they were here first. We stole the goddamn country from them and killed 90% of them 250 years ago. Now they want to round the rest of them up and deport them when they were here first. You fucking morons. He's doing this because he has to find somebody to deport to make the fucking rubes in Wyoming happy. But meanwhile, all this shit is not going well. And these people the ICE agents are untrained, they're undisciplined, they're unregulated. And if they wanted to stop crime, you know, Brian, when he fomented the insurrection against the United States government, of which he was about to no longer be a part of, they arrested and tried and convicted and sent to prison over 1,000 of the most violent and the worst perpetrators. And along with what they did there, plus what they found when they caught some of these son of a bitches, well, I think one guy was sentenced like 15 years or whatever in prison. Trump pardoned him. He let like 1,200 violent, homegrown criminals back out on the streets, out of prison, who have already started being picked up again for like weapons violations, offenses against children, shit like that. He let them out, and he wants to kick out the guy that's doing the drywall. And I got news for all of you other maggot son of a bitches while I'm thinking about it, that no, the immigrants, they took our jobs and they took our health care, and they get to vote. They don't vote and they don't get the health care. And they did. If they took your job, let me tell you something. One particular son of a bitch, this may hit a nerve on out there. I don't know. If you are in such a fucking situation that a guy from Guatemala that wants to do drywall work has negatively impacted your life or living conditions, just admit you're a fucking loser. Okay, just do that for me. You just fucked up. You're just a goddamn worthless fucking twat. But it's always got to be somebody else's fault. There's got to be a grievance. That's what they see in the orange lunatic. It's always somebody else's fault instead of his, and he's got a grievance against all the other people. Well, fuck you and fuck them. And now, at any rate, this woman is dead, as we mentioned, and they're putting up memorial. By the way, they have a GoFundMe. And I'm thinking about contributing. Actually, I'm thinking about having Stacy do it for me because I don't know how to do it myself. But it's raised this morning, which was like 24 hours later, like over $1 million for this woman's family, actually children. She's got 3 of them, 2 from a previous marriage that are teenagers, apparently. But I guess they probably still didn't take the news real kindly. But who knows how many GoFundMes we're going to have start, because as we mentioned, they shot 2 more people in Portland. They said they were chasing a dangerous Venezuelan gang member. And they shot both people in the car, and the car took off. And then later on, they caught up because there's a man and a woman with gunshot wounds. And the last I heard on the news, of course, by the time people hear this, it'll be a few days later, but they couldn't independently, AKA they couldn't, besides what the federal government said, confirm that any of these people were involved in gang activity. Does the head of MS-13 say, hey, honey, I'll get back to my gang in a minute, but can we run down to Target and get some sweatshirts, and puts his wife in the car or whatever? I don't know. But they can say anything. Even when there's video, they can say it, and some ill-informed and or aggrieved section of this country will believe the drivel. So all I'm going to say is one more thing, because I said at one point a long time ago on this show, decent people will not tolerate Donald Trump for long. I didn't know how long, but this may be the fucking point. Again, we said it about Rob Reiner. We say, well, what is going to be the tipping point? But when you start, if somebody was coming down the street to kidnap my neighbor Richie, I would call him on the fucking phone, or now that they've got community groups where they're wearing whistles. So if ICE comes in, they can start blowing whistles to alert their friends and neighbors. I would do the same thing. If these fucking assholes are coming into my neighborhood and kidnapping my neighbors out from under me, what the fuck? But at some point, when they keep shooting and or abusing the citizens, it's human nature. I'm surprised already that the protesters have signs instead of bats and pitchforks or whatever. But they're sooner or later they're going to shoot the wrong guy's grandmother or throw the wrong guy's wife down the stairs or whatever. And this is America. Everybody's got guns. All the guns in the world. All the guns at last. And somebody's going to go get even. And then you've got Meal Team 6 can't hit the broadside of a barn with a fucking pickaxe. You're firing indiscriminately on the streets. It's going to be a goddamn shit show. What is the matter with these people? And what is the matter with this motherfucker at the top that is so morally bankrupt and so self-absorbed in the smell of his own shit and trying to keep his goddamn worthless ass out of prison until he dies of a miserable old age, that he would allow this to go? He don't care about anybody. And it's been demonstrated time after time after time. So for those of you around the world, if you got plans to vacation in America, I'd say change them. And I hear a lot of people are. And now there's a thing trending about cancel your fucking tickets to the World Cup or whatever. Because he has accomplished his mission. The entire world hates us and nobody wants to come here. They just booed our national anthem in Australia, for Christ's sake. We do half the Australian national economy just on Outback Steakhouses, don't we? But they still hate us.
I don't think that's how that works, but
well, good day to you, mate. Throw another citizen on the Barbie.
One thing I'll say real quick, because this seems a little different than previous endless scandals. But there's been a few things recently, one after another, after another, after another. And it does appear like a lot of the longtime loyalists, or a lot of the people that really jumped on the bandwagon heavily in the last election, that really got behind him for whatever reason, they're starting to have problems. Whether it's the Epstein files, which he tried to completely dismiss, and then they still haven't released, I think I said 1% has been released of the Epstein files, his Fifth Avenue best friend. Whether it was the Rob Reiner tweet, which we saw unite people on every side of the political spectrum. Everyone agreed that it was a hideous tweet. Whether it's going after the Venezuelan oil, bypassing Congress. Again, you're bypassing Republicans and Democrats. You're bypassing everyone. or whether it's now ICE in the streets causing trouble at times. Sometimes it doesn't appear like there's any sort of, it doesn't look like they're hunting for someone or looking for someone. It appears they're just standing around waiting for the problem. But all of these things together, you're seeing people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was a MAGA nut, who was all in on all that stuff. They turned on her. He turned on her because she wanted the Epstein files released. There's something going, I don't know, it's something, there's a speedboat going by me. I don't know what's happening, and maybe the government. The point is...
Yeah, wait, you're closer to Washington than I am, pal, and nice knowing you.
The point is that you're starting to see people who have been willing to turn a blind eye. Not everyone. And, there's some people who still get in line when they hear the company line from Kristi Noem or J.D. Vance, who's just a fucking shapeshifter. He'll say anything at any time. But they just get in line and all of a sudden she's a domestic terrorist, or this is the thing and this is the thing. But I think you're starting to see, at least for Trump, you're starting to see some people kind of giving up on the dream, I guess.
Well, but see, the problem is there's still, it's always been a minority of the overall people. And usually it's a minority of the voting bloc, but because of the electoral college, blah, blah, blah. But even if his support was 40 to 45% of the population, which is still, my God, what an indictment of our country. If he loses the people that kind of slowly see through it, the base, the people who are never going to see, who are never going to know, never going to learn, never going to want to know, is still, when you think of it as 15 or 20% that will never shake it, that's millions of people. And yes, he is 80 years old, and thankfully, just by the laws of time, chronology, and fucking cholesterol, will die soon. Thankfully. But the stench and the stain of him and his ism, the Trump-ism and the MAGA-ism, it'll be 50 years before this country is clean of what he is. As somebody again phrased so eloquently, he poisoned the well of American social discourse for generations by validating the worst of us and piling all of the fringe elements up to where they became the most of us. And it is an indictment of not just the lack of education, but the hatefulness and the fucking stupidity of large numbers of people created this phenomenon that it'll take generations to fucking live down and to correct. Even when or if sane heads prevail, years to correct the judges and the moles in various places. He put January 6th pardonees in the Justice Department. He's got the criminals in charge of catching the criminals.
This has been Happy Talk.
It sure has. All right, Brian, let's move in a different direction here, shall we? Let's back up and turn right and get back to the wrestling. Now we can talk about the silly stuff and the silly people saying silly things. And we just did a show a couple of days ago, your program, The Drive-Thru, where we talked about William Regal's, I hesitate to even call it a tweet. He tweeted it out, but it was a full and well-crafted statement about his experiences with neck injuries and his recommendations and or advice for the younger generation that is increasingly making a habit out of landing on their heads. And we also talked about that just every AEW fanatic on Twitter, both of them, with the 7 million different accounts each, jumped all over poor. He never mentioned any specific company or any specific people. He would just say all of the young wrestlers. But since it was, they struck a nerve, as Dennis Condrey would say, because it came right after Moxley tried to kill poor old Kyle Fletcher, whichever. I'm now confused which one it is. Old Kyle tried to kill him with that wingy dingy off the top rope and just planted him on his head. It's a miracle of Mother Nature that he didn't discapacitate himself. And so everybody had struck a nerve, but now the head sicko, apparently from what I've heard, and I don't know what he said. I haven't seen or heard the comments, but I understand that Tony Khan, the HSIC head sicko in charge, has got official comments about William Regal's tweet. Did he, as a leader, should try to calm the situation and settle the people down from attacking the man for expressing a valid viewpoint? How did Tony handle this?
And again, I don't know how much of the concern was about that or just the general idea of wrestlers hurting themselves, wrestlers landing on their head. This came on the heels of the Kenny Omega statement. Did you see that one?
Yes, he actually was as wishy-washy and polite and breathy on that as he was normally, but he was somewhat the voice of reason, which, again, he's not an inflammatory, bombastic kind of guy as Kenny. He's just a insufferable, phony wrestling douche. But go ahead.
Well, he made his statement, and then Tony Khan made an appearance on the Mark Hoke Show Pro Wrestling Radio Show podcast, as it's listed here.
Now, I'm sorry, what now? Help me? What?
Mark Hoke, I guess that's the host name.
Hoke?
Hoke,
okay.
Hoke, the Mark Hoke Show Pro Wrestling Radio Show podcast. Is how it says here.
Incorporated.
Well, he brought up the host of that show, the aforementioned Mr. Hoke, brought up William Regal's warning, his tweet, and here's what Tony Khan
is all of his shows are pretty hokey, I bet.
Here's Tony Khan's response to it. Pro wrestlers are always taking hard-hitting and high-risk chances. That's one of the things that makes pro wrestling so exciting. In AEW, we've been able to have all these great events, and we've never had a career-ending injury like that from our wrestling. I don't think AEW is any different than any other wrestling.
Wait, hold on, pump the brakes here for a second. Who said anything about career-ending?
Well, yeah, to be fair, we don't know what was framed as a question. We don't have the question. We just have the quote.
Okay.
So
I was just going to say, does it not count if you break your neck and you have some kind of surgery and you're out for 2.5 years and you come back? Well, it didn't end his career, but go ahead.
Well, to be fair, has Adam Cole's career ended? But whatever.
Well, he may have committed career suicide. He was a suicide blonde, died by his own hand.
I don't think AEW is any different than any other wrestling promotion in the world. The wrestlers want to do their very best, and sometimes a promotion will step in. AEW and I have at times stepped in and said, I can't do that. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't want to do that every day or every match, but there are times where it comes up, and that's okay. Everything you talk about, Hold on
one more second. I'm wondering what the things are, first of all, that he stepped in and they've set each other on fire. They've run over each other with vehicles. They have drunk each other's blood. They have attempted the bleach pouring. What did he step in and say? And the dragging of the people behind the vehicles. That's a good one. And much less all the high bumps and furniture, etc. Yeah. What did he ixnay? I'm wondering. And I know you can't answer that, so I won't expect you to.
I don't know if there is an answer.
But second,
I don't know if there is an answer.
But secondly, besides, what has he ixnayed? This is not something. How can I phrase this? It's not something that he should have to ixnay, because if they have set up a situation where these guys on all these TV shows are telling Tony Khan every move they're going to do in the fucking match in the course of the night, then that's just insane anyway. There ought to be some type of professionalism spread out amongst the roster, at least with the individual agents who should have veto power. But I know Tony doesn't give that to anybody but himself. But no, the agent in any responsible place that I've ever worked had veto power, except if it was the goddamn The Rock or the championship match of the company or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But just over a goddamn move that doesn't make any difference in the finish or in who's going over or in with the story being told. It's just, I'm going to bust out this thing where I drop him on his head off the top rope. That shouldn't get to Tony Khan. You see what I'm saying? If the boys don't know not to do that, or maybe the guy that wants to give it wants to do it, but the guy that is supposed to take it is like, no. Then an agent of something of that danger should know about it and should say, there's no reason for it because you're going to be fine with all the other stuff you're doing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I don't know what agents can do. Remember the good old days when Matt Hardy jumped onto his head a couple times on like the same night? Remember it happened one after another?
Well, no. I think it was Guevara fucking helped him drop him on his head, didn't he?
That's right. That's who he was working with. It was that feud.
Yeah, he knocked him off the top of a forklift. Yeah, whatever.
Here's the question. Has Tony ever said no to Darby?
Oh, a classic example there, for fuck's sake, of just ridiculous risking of spinal injuries for stupid bumps into the stairs that aren't even that impressive, much less all the other shit in the distance and accuracy contest where they're flinging him places, but and nevertheless.
Well, back to Tony Khan. Everything you talk about, these are things you constantly balance in sports. Not just AEW, but all sports. Taking care of your athletes and doing things to protect the health and safety of your athletes to make the sport work. And then also there's a quote here related to the specific match and the spot.
Okay. How many of the football players have to take bumps off the stadium bleachers through furniture?
I think that's during the post-game celebration. But one last quote here about the match. I thought World's End was great. And I thought everything about it was wonderful. And if anybody was talking about Kyle Fletcher versus Jon Moxley, that's one of my favorite matches of all time. And it's all subjective. Best match is always in the eye of the beholder. And I do think it's something to be really proud of AEW to hang our hats on. How fantastic a year that was. All of our wrestlers are doing well.
Wait a minute. He's just dangled his participle right into a whole new goddamn statement there, hadn't he? Or did that match take it that he was referring to in singular grammar suddenly take a year to complete?
Again, I'll go back a sentence here. Best match is always in the eye of the beholder. And I do think it's something to be really proud of AEW to hang our hats on. How fantastic a year that was. All our wrestlers are doing well. And what AEW accomplished in 2025, going into 2026.
All our wrestlers are doing well. Osprey, got his neck fused and he'll be back in months. And Swerve just came back from having something done. And the other guy's fucking hurt. Who's that? And
it's like a week. It's a week into the new year, and he's answering like someone asked you, Jim, tell me about 1984. Oh, how fantastic a year that was. It was a long time ago, not last year.
It was a very good year.
Oh, well, that's the quotes from the Tony Khan thing. And again, the William Regal tweet got a lot of people going. Lots of other people in wrestling tweeted out their thoughts.
But and once again, when being asked about that specific issue and because of that specific reason, Tony didn't mention his name and didn't discuss really anything about it.
The same way William Regal didn't mention a specific match or what he was specifically talking about, that all of a sudden he put this out there. But it says something that he was concerned.
You know what the problem is, Brian? The problem is a lot of these young whippersnappers that are doing all these fancy Dan maneuvers where they're going to be maneuvering in a hover round or a daggum motorized wheelchair before long. They're not planning for the future. They're not setting themselves up for success in business after their athletic careers are over with. They're not thinking about the future, transforming themselves into an entrepreneur, a founder, a boss man, a CEO, a mover and shaker and mover and groover. Just like you and me, Brian, we are in control of our own domains, our own empires, and you could be too out there in podcast land if you team up with Shopify. I knew you was going to do that. Folks, again, our friends at Shopify are back with us for 2026 because they want us to tell you just how rich and how wealthy and how filthy capitalistic you can get by starting your own business, and they're going to get behind you and they're going to shove it right down people's throats until these people say, fuck, we got to give them some money to get them to go away. No matter what like your product.
It won't be exactly like that.
Well, you know, I was thinking about that, actually. I was thinking about contacting Shopify and starting up a business where I go over and visit people for free and they pay me to leave.
No, let's not.
See that?
I don't know. Let's not see. There's nothing to see.
That's
nothing to see here.
That's a money-making idea. That's a money-making idea. I'm telling you. And I know a lot of people, and to be honest, Brian, tell the truth, and I know a lot of the listeners will feel the same way. Don't you know a lot of people that whenever you're around them, you would pay them to leave?
There may be a few people, sure.
That's the thing about it.
Nothing to do with this, but there may be a few people.
These kind of money-making opportunities are part of what you're going to get involved with when you go to Shopify, because they got the brains for this kind of stuff and they've got the infrastructure. They can give you all the tools to build your dream store. They can give you bricks and mortar and ladles and wheelbarrows and things to stir the cement and slap it on and stick the bread. You'll build your store. And boy, that's hard work. So be prepared for some long days.
Virtually and metaphorically, metaphorical ladles.
And once you get your store built now, and make sure to go with the laminate floor. Choose from hundreds of beautiful templates that you can customize to match your brand. Let's say your brand's color or your brand shape or your brand. You can be handy brandy. And they've got built-in AI tools that are going to do a lot of this for you. They're going to write product descriptions. If your shit is shit, well, they'll make it sound like Shinola. And they're going to help you all along the way with marketing, or they're going to create the email and social media campaigns that reach the customers. It'll be impossible for you to avoid mention of your business everywhere around the world until finally people just throw their hands up in the air and say, here, take it all. Just get away from me.
That's not how it works, and it's not a guarantee. Let's not promise people that people will be unable to avoid the name of their company.
Let's not promise people. Now, people who promise people are the luckiest people in the world. And as you grow, we've mentioned before, Shopify will grow with you, almost like another arm or possibly a conjoined twin alongside you. And as you get bigger, it will get bigger. And then finally, one side will begin fighting the other side for dominance in the brain.
That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
But you can handle more orders that way and expand to new markets. Imagine if you've got 4 arms instead of 2, you can expand to new markets.
No, again, the point is, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a product and you need an online partner, you need a store that you could trust, good infrastructure. They also have easy checkouts.
They're big on child labor.
They are not big on. No, that's not even in a metaphorical sense, folks. That's not what it is.
But well, that infant structure that isn't going to build itself.
Let's get back on track with sales and business and commerce. Help your business online. You need a good online presence like we do from our friends at Shopify.
Yes, or we have. Well, like a lot of people don't think it'd be like it is, but it do. I'll tell you what, you're going to have a presence all over the place. You're going to hear that noise. You know what that noise is? That noise is the cash register of your mind. Counting up all the money you're going to make with Shopify, and it's not going to cost you, but only $1. Only one smackaroonie, only one greenback. Right now, go to Shopify.com/JCE, and you can sign up for a $1 a month trial period, and you can start selling today. Selling, like, you know what? They're going to reach through the computer screen and grab you by the balls and squeeze. You're going to sell like you're going to the electric chair.
That's not what it'll be like. That's not what it's going to be. There's not going to be any squeezing, and you're going to enjoy. It's not going to be the electric chair. You're going to have electric sales. Electric metaphorical sales in the virtual digital sense from our friends at Shopify, Jim.
Electrical, metaphorical, logical, practical. I can sign up your name and I can be so dependable. Political. Shopify.com/JCE, $1 a month trial period. Start selling today with Shopify by your side, right? Growing on top of you. And it'll take over gradually your arm first and then attach to the rib cage. And then pretty soon you're just the innocent victim in all this. It's the dominant figure and you're kind of the parasite.
There are no victims. There are no parasites. Just sales. From your friends and ours at Shopify. We trust them. You can too. Shopify.com/JCE. A very professional 15 seconds here at the end for our very good friends at Shopify.
Yes, our conjoined twins, Shopify.com. Well, I guess we ought to. Oh, yeah, there's another one. It hit me broadside coming down the sidewalk. We should talk, I guess, just to get it over with, if nothing else, about the AEW program from this past Wednesday night. We are back covering, ladies and gentlemen, in the new year of 2026, back covering the current wrestling programs as they exist on the air. And this was January 7th of 2026, the AEW Dynamite program. They opened it up because they were in Tulsa, and Jim Ross is back at the desk. He was walking slow down the ramp, but he's back. And I know JR loves to work. He loves commentary. He loves what he does. He, really wants to be involved. But I'm embarrassed for him when he has to sit down there and watch this. It's like the girls with the cake and the choo-choo train dance and the fucking falderall. It's just like he's doing cable access. And it hurts me to see that he was once the voice of the hottest program on the air, and now he's a witness to an amateur hour audition. It's just, it hurts my feelings.
He was the voice to multiple hottest wrestling hours on the air in different times and different decades. But you know what? He's still Jim Ross. He's doing what he can. He's not killing them on commentary like he did in the past. And at least he's not Shivani, just sitting there telling you how great everything is and how happy he is to be there and how it's the best it's ever been and everything's great. And he's terrible.
Tony sounds like he's losing his voice, or maybe he's just, maybe he's old. He's older than me, for fuck's sake. That's almost impossible. He shouldn't have these long hours without rest.
It's crazy to think that was the original Dynamite announce team: Jim Ross, Shivani, and Excalibur.
That is crazy. Find out that now, 5 years later, they've kept the two that we really didn't like, and they just nevertheless, JR's had health problems. And they did 5 minutes of match plugs and nonsense and blah, blah, blah. And then they opened up with Dick the Boozer himself versus Shelton Benjamin. In the stipulation on this was if Shelton either won or got a draw, then he got a title shot against Moxley. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that is an old idea that Delirious had for Ring of Honor. But we didn't have Moxley at that point in time, or we wouldn't have set 20-minute time limits. Jesus. I watched this, unlike most Moxley matches, because it's Shelton. And I thought, okay, here's the test. If anybody can have a match with him, it'd be Shelton. But the answer I got was not in the affirmative, because Moxley was still calling it. Not only was he calling it, but my God, I've been on dates with girls I didn't whisper in their ear as much as Moxley did with Shelton in this fucking match on camera. I don't know what he was trying to tell him. Maybe he was trying to explain the whole Death Rider goddamn gimmick to him. But it was a Moxley match. They went out in the bleachers in the arena and fought on the stairs and around the ring for 5 minutes at a time with fucking referee just standing there waving his arms. They buried the referee in a variety of several different ways. And it was a Moxley match. It looked better because Shelton is better than most of the opponents Moxley has. But it was still, the people liked it when Shelton threw him around like a sack of shit, which he gave him probably 15 fucking German suplexes. But this also, Shelton Benjamin, the Hurt Syndicate, are baby faces and have been for some time at this point. But Moxley, again, inexplicably, they started cheering him because he was wrestling the other heels, and now he's wrestling a babyface, and they're still cheering him. So it's babyface versus alleged babyface. And it's no wonder that you can't position anybody in this company, because they just indiscriminately book these fucking matches and nobody can get a consistent reaction except when they're breaking furniture. They had to milk the draw, and they went like 1955 or whatever. And they both can do some decent shit, but the finish was Shelton got an armbar, kind of almost like a cross arm breaker on him, and Moxley just leaned up on him and covered it. 1, 2, 3 with 5 seconds left. And then they shook hands. And Moxley, did he do something to turn babyface? Did he save someone? Did he goddamn turn on his heel cohorts? Did he come out and admit that he had been wrong in all of his actions over the last couple of years? Or did he just get cheered against the other heel and give a rah-rah speech about how great AEW was?
Well, yeah, his unit are still heels, and he's a babyface now, clearly. And he just had some tough matches, and he lost a few times, and he showed a lot of adversity, or he overcame a lot of adversity.
He showed he was averse to adversity.
To, get past those losses to Kyle O'Reilly. Where's Kyle O'Reilly? But anyway,
well, who knows? He just beat the guy that nobody beat in fucking ages a couple times and then disappeared.
Jon Moxley's work is terrible. I'm sorry. I know they like him. You can't take away that AEW fans really like him.
What about the girly punches out on the floor to Shelton's head?
Everything.
It was just embarrassing.
The punches. You said he was talking. I mean, we give it to Cena for talking. This was more than that. This was more egregious than that. Didn't care if anyone saw it. And just everything he does in there looks bad. And then he just does the funny walk. And then he sets up something that looks bad. His match layout is always bad. Those stupid forearms that always look bad. He does them at the worst part of the match. All right, we've done all this other crazy shit. Now let's do this again. His matches are terrible. And again, there's a fan base that thinks his promos are good too. Moxley is one of the worst professional wrestlers I've ever seen. He also has one of the biggest cults of personality around him, and that's why people like him. But goddamn, his work is awful.
I can't figure out what the personality is. I'm well, nevertheless, then again we had the Lollipop Guild back together again. Apparently, old Kevin Knight and Hong Kong Phooey had been viciously attacked in the back and they weren't medically cleared. So old Jungle Jackoff didn't have partners for the 6-man tag with Ricochet and his two stooges. But then suddenly out came the Hardley Boys. And now we've got, again, the three friends from California playing with the other flippy guy that they like and his two stooges that are just happy to be there. And Brian, I know you'll find this hard to believe. Well, not you because you saw it, but they started the match with a 6-way on the floor and a bunch of flips. And I said, well, let's see how long it takes me to fast forward through this. It's the same thing. It's always the same thing. So after about 15 minutes, the kids won. And then I know these baby faces don't know how to get over themselves, but it seems like somebody would be able to catch them and stop them but who knew they would. The idiots, they win the match and then they kneel down and especially that a close-up on old Jungle Jack. He kneels down and leans over the second rope to talk into the camera so that the other guy, the new heel, Jake Doyle, has made his debut. Get out of the way for old Jake Doyle. He's got a big old fat boil right on his neck and it's about to pop. Old Jake. But anyway, his partner is now Fat Ass Davis. And they came in the ring and they jumped the fucking baby, but they're having to kick Jungle Jack from behind while he's leaned over the rope. They didn't even stand up where they could get glommed from behind and be ready to feed or take a bump or do something. They're just... And they got sloppy, lackluster heat in quotation marks. And there was another one of the masked guys that he's got, Callus, and some of the miscellaneous heels are out there. And they kicked shit out of these guys for a couple seconds. And then here comes, again, Spitball Bailey and Kevin Knight with parts of their bodies wrapped up. And one of them's got a hockey stick, and the other one has, what was that, a barbed wire wrapped fucking cricket bat or whatever. And they try to make a save, but the lights go out. And by the way, that's going to be a problem later on in the evening. But this, apparently they can turn all of them out and all of them back on, but they can't turn. Well, you've heard that old saying, Brian, you can turn some of the lights on some of the time. And some of the lights on all of the time, but you can't turn all the lights on all the time. Or something like that. It's dark forever. Lights come back on. There's a guy wearing a mask and a suit in the ring. And he starts beating up the baby faces. And Sockface is so... I don't even know what the word is, so anxious, so eager to reveal this that he told people it was Andrade before Andrade took the mask off and revealed it was Andrade. And I know that somebody will say, probably Sockface, well, I know the guy and I've seen him dressed in that and I knew it was that. That's where you fucking, number one, if they had the proper layout of the segment, the guy's lights would have come on, you would have seen the guy and he'd have done boom, boom in 10 seconds and laid two people out with two moves. And then you could have said it, but that's where you fucking stretch a little bit and go, wait a minute. I think I know who that is, but it can't be. He can't be here now. Why? It just bullshit. But anyway, he spoiled the hood being popped. Then he popped the hood. We already knew who it was. Another member of the Don Fallis family. What's that now? 14, Brian? Do you who's in the Don Fallis family right now? And we talk about this every week.
We did this before, and that was more people. All right. Lance Archer.
Okay.
Takeshita.
Uh-huh.
Fletcher.
Uh-huh.
Okada.
Uh-huh.
Rocky Romero.
Uh-huh.
Mark Davis.
Uh-huh.
Is Hechicero in, or am I thinking of someone else?
Yeah. Nope. It's
Hechicero? Hechicero. Yeah. The Clone.
That's right. I forgot about him.
Hold on. The Clone. Jake. He used to be Jake something. What's his new name? Jake. Doyle. Jake Doyle.
He's Johnny Doyle's brother.
I don't know about that. But Jake Doyle. That's 9. Who am I forgetting? Can't believe I said 9 people, and I still feel like I'm forgetting people.
Well, because there's more, depending on the whims of the week. But anyway, so, and while this joyous reunion with Andrade is happening, because apparently he's got his contractual ducks in a row now, FTR comes out on the stage with Stokely in a wheelchair. And they're just looking. And why are they looking? Who are they looking at? What and Stokely in a wheelchair. Yes, he took the bad bump, but now you've got a funny visual. And again, I remind everybody, whether it was me being funny or Jimmy Hart being funny or whatever about an injury, it was after we had heat, and it was at a time where we were constantly having more heat put on us, and then we would do something to blow a little off and then get some more back. Stokely's never been treated seriously, taken seriously, presented seriously, acted seriously. Neither is Callis. None of them have any heat. They're just doing the funny shit that makes them a funny comedy flunky, and at the same time drags the stature of the guy that they're with down because it's just goofy shit. So there's 18 people out there, and they just debuted. And by the way, Jake Doyle looks a lot like Davis.
They're wearing the same outfit. They were wearing the exact same outfit, and they're both gigantic.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even facially, hair-wise, whatever, should have made them the Davis brothers. If nothing, I don't know where Doyle comes from, but nevertheless, you've just introduced this guy into they did a pre-tape at the top where they said, here's Jake Doyle, he's here. And then he comes in and gets a little bit of heat, and then the other guy comes in. Why do you debut 2 people in the same goddamn, it's a mess. So there's 15 fucking people out there. Your thoughts on anything related to that?
Who's that wrestler dressed like Andrade? It's Andrade!
Andrade!
I don't know. I mean, how much can you pop for Andrade at this point when he randomly shows up? And now he's just another guy. That's the 10th guy, just that we've come up with today. In this group, with a heel manager you don't take seriously, doesn't work ringside. Even if he did, you wouldn't take him seriously because you see what his instincts are. And then as far as the match, Jack Perry, he almost looks less like a wrestler now than he did a few years ago as Jungle Boy. Because now that he's not just some young kid, he hasn't grown. He hasn't gained a pound. And he just looks so tiny. Any wrestler, any female wrestler could take Jack Perry. And the Young Bucks, they're back all of a sudden to just being the babyface Young Bucks. Like it all didn't happen.
You know, I'm thinking old Jungle Jack there. It may be the loincloth. That may have something to do with his lack of virility looking. Because I bet you right now, Johnny Sheffield, when he was 14, could have kicked the shit out of Jungle Jack Perry.
I don't disagree.
Is Johnny Sheffield still alive? Of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a small child in the audience, Johnny Sheffield played Boy in the MGM Tarzan movies with Johnny Weissmuller, and later on got his own series, Bomba the Jungle Boy. And when he was, let's see, they found him in the plane crash in 1939. And by Tarzan and the Mermaids, that kid had to be 15 years old. He towered over Jack Perry when he was 15. I say Bomba the Jungle Boy could kick the shit out of Jungle Jack Perry.
You know, to me, one of the big themes all night, and of course there are some big highlights to come, but we've been saying it really, more and more every week it hits me, just they're stuck in terms of getting new talent. You know, we're seeing the same people, you know, with an injured wrestler rotated back in every now and then, but it's the same people doing the same things every single week. It's been years now. And there's no big stars coming in. There's no one coming in. Who? Even if they bring Jericho back, that ain't going to help.
He's not new there.
But,
the biggest benefit to the WWE Jericho's going to be is he's so new because they miss him because he went away. I don't think they really miss him in AEW yet because it would be what it would be. But nevertheless, and there's the newest thing in AEW right now is MJF's hair.
And in terms of the Callis family, it's ridiculous. And it's a gigantic, endless group. But it was even more ridiculous when the Samoa Joe group or whoever the ops trainees.
Oh, did you see those teenagers?
Yeah, well, I'll wait till we get there. But it was like, what the fuck is this?
Like a fucking suddenly the daycare center descended on. All right, we'll get there in a minute because we gotta skip over some other nonsense. Renee Moxley Good, she of the unfortunate name this week, was in the ring with Willow Nightingale, who was supported by her friend Harley Cameron and her new friend, who they were enemies for a while, and I forgot why that they're not anymore, because I forgot why they were to begin with, Chris Statlander. Because Willow is the new TBS champion, because now, like, again, Moxley didn't get beat for a year and a half, and he did like fucking 4 jobs in a row with the same thing. Mercedes never gets beat, and suddenly she's getting beat like a government mule. But they had the ring set up with a table and the party supplies and a big cake for Willow's celebration as new TBS champion. Again, I'm not the person to knock having a party with a cake on TV as a celebration. If you're a heel, or potentially if the tables are going to be turned on the heel, I think is the better way to do it, because baby faces seem kind of indulgent and stuck up and arrogant if they have a party with cakes and party favors for themselves. It's kind of a heel move, but nevertheless, again, this is something where you've got to have you can't just do it out of nowhere. And they've done parties out the ass, and they've done cakes in the face on this show recently. I remember seeing them
a few times, I think. Yeah.
Few times, but you've got to have some setup to it. You've got to have heat on the fucking heel that's going to get caked, yes, but also there needs to be some legitimate purpose. Rather, we're going to have a fucking party here, and Mercedes came out on her own in a ring full of baby faces in a goofy outfit where she looked like a squished banana cream pie. And apparently she's doing a deal where she's just lost her mind over losing this belt or whatever, because she had no makeup on. So my God, that was Josephine Camel unfiltered. And just and screaming. But she clears off the table and turns the table over, but Statlander had saved the cake. And then Mercedes runs at Willow, who just moves, and Mercedes trips and cakes herself. She falls in the cake, and then Willow picks her up and power bombs her back in the cake. And then they all get in a conga line, including the interviewer, and dance around the caked lady. It's comedy. It's just a rib. It's not even, it's sketch comedy, kind of. It doesn't even really have a coherent thread through it.
It's bad acting too. I know Mercedes is on one of the Star Wars series. I haven't watched it, but I didn't hear anyone complain about her acting. I don't know what she did, but she's a horrible actress.
Well, I can tell you from officially being a movie star now that I am, they can take that shit all day long and you only see one. But this shit where you only get one take, that's what you're getting.
It's just like it makes you appreciate the acting on Glow when you see this. And I like Willow. Willow, her promo just doesn't, I don't know. This whole segment was a bad idea. And then Mercedes, just the over-the-top acting. So, yeah. A lot to look forward to there.
Well, let's go on back over the top and down the other side because we got to give them room to breathe. So we're going to bring out Sammy Guevara for his annual appearance on Dynamite, who it was in a single match against Bandito. And again, I guess we'll talk about it in a minute, but apparently they're pushing Bandito as a single. I thought he and Brody King were Bro Dildo or whatever. They were the tag team champions, but now they're going to use him as a single. So now he doesn't even have a partner that can halfway do a promo. And I know a lot of people say, oh, he does such great moves, but I don't. Bandito, what is his personality? What is his, I hate to sound like JR in an old WWF creative meeting. What is his motivation? We don't know what he looks like. We don't know who he is. We don't know. They did, instead of giving us a kind of a legitimate biography of Bandito and what he's done in Mexico, they had him at like Silver Dollar City having shootouts with the goddamn gimmick cowboys. Remember in those videos? So it's a cartoon. And we're supposed to be taking him as a challenger for the world title here. More on that in a minute. Is Sammy Guevara, Brian, the Chevy Chase of AEW? First year, he was hot as a firecracker. Everybody was going crazy over him. Then everybody figured out he was a fucking dick, and now he pops up every once in a while and nobody cares.
It was just a few years ago he was one of the pillars of the company. And then he got sent to
he looks more like Stonehenge, the bad side.
Then he disappeared off TV.
So anyway, they took about 15 minutes with the entrances, and Bandito won with that stupid suplex. It's ridiculous because since he did it here about 4 or 5 times in this overall segment, it's exposed. Unless you are being frisked by the police or about to be butt-fucked in an alleyway, there is no reason for anybody to be in that position that everybody has to get into and hold stock still while he gives them this flippy fucking suplex. Am I lying? Is it unnatural and ridiculous looking?
It's a cool looking thing if it happened every once in a while because of a situation that developed where the guy was like that, but it's every match where the guy does it and you notice that he's there for a while. Bent over like that.
Yeah, bent over and greased up and ready to go. So he won with the suplex, and then here came MJF, and that's where I said, oh, God, no. MJF and Bandit, apparently next week for the AEW title. But then when you think about it, who else can he beat on this roster that would even mean anything? And I wrote down MJF has some guy with him. Apparently the guy's name is Jonathan Cruz. And he is going to serve as the translator here in a minute. But MJF cut the promo that he was a bigger lucha legend and a bigger star in Mexico than Bandito because he'd sold out and beat Mystico or did this and that and the other thing. And then Cruz did the promo in Spanish. And apparently, Brian, you told me this. He's the guy that was dressed like Abraham Lincoln when MJF was in Mexico.
That's right.
But now that he doesn't have the Abraham Lincoln outfit on, he's about fucking 60 years old. But he did the promo in Spanish, and it didn't get a lot of response because it went a while and nobody understood in the building what the fuck he was saying. They're in Tulsa. They weren't in Corpus Christi or whatever. But during this part of the promo, did you see security come over and get the sign from the front row?
Oh, no, I missed that.
The sign, the guy in the front row was holding a sign in front of the railing. It said, MJF blows goats and I've got proof.
Oh, I did see the sign. I didn't see them come get it. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, they snatched it in the middle of this promo. Because you see the security guy just reach into the frame and the guy just gave it up, no problem. It's like, okay, I'm busted.
They don't want to piss off the GOAT fans.
But anyway, MJF says, hey, basically, I've got 6 diamond rings. So he's closing up these loopholes. I got 6 rings and you got 1, Bandito, and it belongs to me. So hand it over, skip this match next week. We'll all be copacetic. And finally, Bandito took the microphone and I speak English, you stupid son of a bitch. And MJF kicked him right in the balls.
That was a good spot. A good moment when he said that after the whole Spanish promo.
And that was the thing, because if he'd have spoken any longer and tried to get it out, he would have lost him. But he got a pop on that. And then MJF says he kicked him in the balls and took the ring off and went for the punch, and Bandito ducked, and MJF leveled Cruz, who was holding Bandito. And then Bandito kicked MJF in the balls and took the ring back. And then I think he gave, did he give Cruz the suplex first or whatever the fuck? But then MJF had to grab the rope and again assume the butt fucking position and freeze there. And Bandito gave him the suplex. And I get that they have to build somebody up for MJF, but it just, he just won the thing and he's, getting mugged and flopped around by this guy. I actually, when they were doing that, I thought, you know what? If after MJF kicked Bandito in the balls and fucking took the ring, if he'd have nailed him and busted him open, and then somebody like Osprey had come back down the aisle to save Bandito, and that was the angle, and we're leading to a pay-per-view match, that would have been great. But MJF is going to have to fucking do some of Bandito's shit, which is going to hinder his normal performance. And then, it's somebody for him to beat, but I don't really care about seeing it. But they could have set something up with a real star, and it would have been okay.
You do some of that Bandito shit, like what? Like the self-induced concussion? They had a promo earlier in the show, I think it was earlier than this, from Kenny Omega, a videotape, cutting a promo on MJF, so they're setting that up already. Even I don't know.
I must have zipped through that when I was trying to avoid some of the other nonsense.
I don't know when they're planning it, but that's something where they had a match a few years ago, but that's it. There's never been a feud. Not that it would be the greatest thing, because it's, Kenny, and his instincts are Kenny's.
Yeah.
But that could be something. MJF versus Kenny Omega. If you're not getting other main event talent coming in, 2 guys that have never had a feud doing something could be something.
Well, and also, if Kenny now is watching what he's doing, then he could listen to MJF, who could actually call a wrestling match and make people give a shit about it, and doesn't have to do all the shit that he normally does because he can't anymore. It might work out well.
MJF could have a match with him that would probably be the easiest on his body, but not disappoint fans of Kenny Omega. The question is, can Kenny Omega stop himself from doing all the things that he thinks Kenny Omega needs to do? What'd you think of, what's his name here? Jonathan Cruz, the Abraham Lincoln manager. What do you think of his role with MJF here, now we've seen him in America?
I like the idea that MJF has a flunky with him. Yeah, you can't really call him a manager because he should in no way have any control over MJF or his contract or anything like that. And besides, the manager is poisoned here because of the other managers. But if MJF has a flunky, if this guy is not only his translator, but he's driving him, He's carrying his bags. Maybe he's his personal chef. You go to MJF's house and he's on the fucking mower out in the front yard. He's the guy that MJF throws in the way and sacrifices him to save his own scalp whenever there's something going on. That is a guy like MJF can, there's a lot of Tully Blanchardishness when you think about it in MJF too. A guy wearing nice clothes and fucking the belt tucked under his arm and the sunglasses and dashing and, he's got to have a flunky around him somewhere. So that might be interesting, but
Like Lawler.
I don't know about. Well, yeah, because Jimmy Hart is obviously a Hall of Fame manager now. But when he first started, people forget for the first 6 months when he was just Lawler's manager, it was the same as really Lawler and Sam Bass back so many years ago, or Lawler and Mickey Poole in the summer of 77. Lawler had a manager as kind of his living foreign object. Lawler did his own promos. The manager would just talk when Lawler asked him a question and, answer in whatever affirmative manner he needed to. The manager was there to interfere, to pass Lawler a gimmick and take it back, or to throw the boot in, or to pull a leg, or to draw the referee. It was part of it. It wasn't like a full Me and the Midnight Express or Bobby Heenan and anybody or whatever, where we were talking for the guys, and it was a flunky. And Lawler worked well off of flunkies. And then when Lawler broke his leg, Jimmy had to swim in the deep end of the pool. But nevertheless, MJF having a flunky could add a little something. He's carrying his belt for him. He's fucking, if he was Gorgeous George, he could spray the perfume, that type of thing. Anywho, we're still moving on this television show, aren't we?
Everyone thinks of it in wrestling, the term valet as being one of the girls. But there used to be male valets for like Gorgeous George or other wrestlers too. I mean, Lord James Blears, lots of people had them.
Well, yes.
Someone should bring that back.
As a matter of fact, hold on here. WQRSTUV. I'm in the American Heritage Dictionary 3rd edition.
Oh, they finally added you. Interesting.
No, I'm not. I'm in it, looking in it instead of in it. You know what I'm saying. But I'm looking up valet. Valley Forge, Valor, Valparaiso, Valuable, Valuate, Valuation, Value. Where do I'm past where? They're valet. A man's male servant who takes care of his clothes and performs other personal services. Or an employee is in a hotel who performs personal services for guests. The valets were originally men. And that Gorgeous George had, what was one of the names? Jeffries, right? And
right,
before he got his wife in the act, and then Gorgeous George Jr., when he first came to Tennessee, I can't remember, he had a guy with him, I think the first time that he was here, and then brought his wife. It was Suzette. But the male and female, I believe, in those days were distinguished by his valet. If he was a male, was VALET, and if it was a female, it was VALETTE. But in technical terms, the valet is a male.
Right, because every manager in AEW is a goof. Stokely you can't take seriously. Don Callis you can't take seriously. You can't add another figure that may be a comedy figure at any time into that mix. But if it's a valet, it changes the whole relationship.
Well, but again, it doesn't have to be the valet. It can be the stooge. It can be the assistant. It can be, whatever name they want to come up for it, or something different every week. This week he's my chauffeur. The next week he's my cook. Next week he's my proctologist. I don't know, whatever the fuck. But always to be demeaned, made fun of, and the cannon fodder for the baby faces. And MJF, gets off scot-free. And then at some point, it's tailor-made that finally the guy says, no. And MJF fucks him up and a big babyface comes to save him. And then the guy's in the babyface's corner because he knows all the tricks and he'll cheat MJF out of the fucking blah, 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 whatever. But that would be too much like wrestling.
Yeah, or it could be a long-term rewarding relationship.
Well, you could do both. You could have a long-term rewarding relationship until you stab each other in the back and want to fucking kill each other.
You would think we would kill a manager that was dressed like Abraham Lincoln, but I was so intrigued by the whole thing. Just the whole thing of going to a show in Arena, Mexico dressed like Abe Lincoln.
It worked with there's the evil American MJF is draped in the red, white, and blue against the national hero of Mexico, and then MJF brings Honest Abe with him to lie and cheat and etc. That kind of worked. I don't know if Abraham Lincoln would work if they were here like every week in Cleveland or whatever. You know what the problem is, Brian? MJF doesn't have anything he can sink his teeth into. He doesn't have anything thick and meaty and juicy and bubbling with flavor that he can just snatch his teeth into and chew on and really chew up the scenery and give a bravura performance. He needs something to chew on, Brian. That's what I'm saying. I wonder if MJF knows about our friends over at Factor. Do you think?
Oh, I don't know. That's actually a very good suggestion, I could say, because their food is delicious. I've been eating Factor meals. I guess we should say Factor meals. I've been eating them for quite a while now.
You've been eating factory. You've been eating very factory.
I very much enjoy their food, and MJF probably would. I think everyone would. All the listeners would. All the people out there.
All the people all over the world. Yes, the Dalmatian flanks are excellent. But no, folks, I'm telling you what, if MJF doesn't know about this, we'll tell him now, and we'll tell you at the same time. Our friends at Factor have basically eliminated the problem you've got when you got it's a new year, there's big goals in your life, you got work, you got school, you got the old lady needs attention every once in a while, you got to walk the dog, you don't have time to cook, so you just take Factor and you pop it in. They're fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. You see, Brian, I didn't say chef craft again, because they changed, instead of chef crafted, which caused the problem before.
Yes.
It's crafted by chefs.
Yes, it is.
So that's easier to say rather than chef crafted.
Crafted by chefs and delicious for humans.
By chefs?
Chefs.
By chefs.
God damn, now I'm messed up. There are chefs, and don't let the ships pass you by. You need a good meal. You need to make sure that you get the right meal for you, and they have lots of great plans and lots of great meals. Our good friends at Factor.
Or if you'd like something crafted by old Shep, folks, you can eat well without the shopping or the cooking. All you got to do is go right now before anything else happens to factormeals.com, Factor meals.com, because right there you will find that they've got over 100 rotating weekly meals. And as the things go around and around and around this giant circle, you just reach in and grab one of them whenever you want it. 100 rotating weekly meals. Options include high protein, calorie smart, the Mediterranean diet. They will leave you stranded on an island in nothing but a Speedo on the sand, eating grapes and palm leaves. They've got a GLP.
No, they won't. No, they won't. Let's not tell people they will do that. And I don't think that's the Mediterranean diet.
Well, it's worth a trip to the Mediterranean to find out, isn't it? You may find some of those topless island dancing girls. But if you don't want the Mediterranean diet, they've got a GLP-1 support meal, which is you take this meal and you stick it up under your GLP-1 and prop it up until you get somebody to nail it up permanently. They've got ready-to-eat salads, plus the new Muscle Pro collection, which supports strength and recovery, and that's what MJF needs. He needs the strength to go on in the madhouse he's in, and he needs to recover from the bad booking. It's always fresh and never frozen unless you freeze it. In that case, it's your goddamn fault, and we're not going to do a thing about it. They'll be ready in about 2 minutes with no prep and no stress, no refined sugar, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils. And though, especially some of those seed oils, Brian, they can make you test negative or positive or whatever it is on the drug tests. You've said, well, they're not going to put any heroin in these meals from Factor, folks.
No, they are not.
No poppy seedy oils or things like that. You're going to have to supply your own heroin.
No, what the hell are you talking, ladies and gentlemen?
Well, if you like heroin with your chicken cacciatore, it's not up to us to judge, but you're not going to get it from Factor.
No, I'm going to judge. I'm going to judge. Get help. Get help. Get clean. And when you get clean, you need a good, clean meal crafted by chefs and, of course, delicious, nutritious, and if you need protein, and so many of us do, I'm talking to you wrestlers out there, you need your protein. Yes. Factor has wonderful protein meals. Protein Plus.
Well, it's plus, it's extra, it's added. All the protein that you'd ever want. See, there's 100 rotating weekly meals, so sooner or later you're going to find something that fits your needs. Quality, functional ingredients. Colorful veggies. I've never seen food these colors before, blue and purple. It's amazing what they can do with a little oil paint these days. Healthy fats. He's a pool shark out of Minnesota, and he is saying also that he loves these meals. Healthy fats right now. You've never heard of him?
You know what? I didn't know about Healthy Fats. No, he's one of the Fats family. Famous for their billiard play that I wasn't aware of.
It's a dynasty of billiard players, yes. But he's had to cut down in recent years. That's why he's on Factor. Now you can barely see him. He turns sideways. He can hide behind his pool cue. Folks, right now, head to factormeals.com and find out all about this and use the code JCE50OFF. to get 50% off of your first box of Factor plus free breakfast for 1 year. That offer, of course it is only valid for new Factor customers with the code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. But you can make healthier eating easy with Factor, factormeals.com/JCE50OFF, and use the code JCE50OFF to get 50% off your first Factor box and free breakfast for 1 year. It's always 50. It's just 50. You're going to get 50, 50, 50, 50.
Try the salmon. Once again, Factor Meals.
Try the waitress and tip the veal.
Factormeals.com.
Stacy does the what is the keto friendly type of business. That's what her picks are for these, but she rather enjoyed the Denmark goulash. But you can too, folks. Again, that's right. This chef, he's busy, he's crapping daily.
Once again, factormeals.com/JCE50OFF, and that's the promo code to get 50% off your first Factor Plus and all that other stuff. You know what was going on.
If we're going to eat this type of stuff, then you can too. Who the fuck are you? Better than we are? Yeah, see?
Factor.
Here's another factor of people who are not any better than we are. The main event, I've never seen this before, Brian. They had a lights out match where they turned the lights on and turned the lights off and couldn't get them to come back on. Now that somebody has told them the story about how the lights out match originated, that the idea was that it's a non-sanctioned match. The promotion is only giving the time in the ring to the participants to settle their issue. The promotion's not responsible if anybody gets hurt. It's not an officially sanctioned match. It's not going in the record books. And as Eddie Graham would do, since it was called a lights out match because they would symbolically turn the ring lights out at the end of the regular card and then turn them back on to signify that the show had ended and now this is something extra. And that became the lights out match. And then people forgot a lot of that pageantry surrounding it. But now somebody has told them the story over there because it was a lights out match, no time limit, no disqualification, anything goes, lazy booking. And they actually had old Smiley Roberts say the lights will go down to signify that our show is over and then it will come back up. And then we're not responsible for anything. And they turned the lights down and they wouldn't come back on. And now for like the first 2 fucking minutes of the match, the only light around ringside or above the ring was the handheld spotlights that they had that they could shine on each guy individually as long as he didn't move. I know that there are a certain kind of, let me say this and then you chime in because you may be going in this direction. I know that there are certain kinds of arena lights that if you turn them off, I think they're like vapor lights or whatever, but that they take a certain amount of like 5 minutes or whatever to either cool down or recharge or where they come back on. But I don't know what kind of fucking television lights that they were, because they did happen twice. But at one point they had a blackout. And then because they had the lighting problem earlier in the Willow Nightingale match when something just went out for no reason. It came back on.
It was the same kind of lighting there.
Yeah, but they probably had tried it and hit the wrong cue or something. I don't know, but I don't know what kind of TV lights they would have been using that they could turn off and turn back on one time and then turned off and couldn't get back on the next time, is what I'm saying. But nevertheless, so it was a true lights out match. There was one, goddamn it, Izzy Slapowitz's son had emailed me one time an old Eastern Kentucky outlaw show where they forgot when they had the outdoor show that they had scheduled it to start in daytime, but it would be dark afterwards or something, and they had him turn the car lights on the match. No, as a matter of fact, that was the story. He said where the guy turned the lights out in the building because that's the way that it was advertised, a lights out match, and he wouldn't let him turn it back on because he wanted to give the people what they'd advertised. And he wasn't smart to the business. So they had a fucking match in the dark that went 90 seconds and then fucking just counted 1, 2, 3 and left. Anyhow, I wish the lights had been off through the whole thing of this. It was Powerhouse Hobbs and Hook against Adam Page and Swerve. And okay, we know then that the heels aren't going to win, but the idea is that Page and Swerve are teaming up, blah, blah, blah. But why does it have to be a garbage match too? And they started right at the overrun, really, at 10 o'clock. Chairs and the fighting on the floor. And then finally they got the lights back on. And then they had tables in the ring and a staple gun and fake spots. And then I swear, you got a kick out of this, but Swerve and Page get outside and get under the ring and pull out a flat of like 6 or 8 cinder blocks, quote unquote, and they can't get it in the ring. It's stuck on the apron skirt or it's stuck under the rope or whatever. They took forever, and these other guys just having to lay around and wait till these chuckle fucks get this thing in the ring. And then Hobbs ended up power slamming Swerve on the cement blocks. They got a 2 count before Page made the save. And then more shit with chairs or whatever. And then that's when the Ops Dojo came out. I know they're just using local independent guys, but is there a Tulsa branch of Mat Rats? These guys were all 14 years old. It looked ridiculous. And Just all of them, nondescript, long-haired teenagers with op shirts on, just jump Page and kick the shit out of him in front of the referee. Well, I say kick the shit out. It looked fake as fuck, but they were interfering, but it's no DQ. And then they got the chain, the big logging chain, and fake tied Swerve and Page together by their necks, where the close-up you could see that the chain was in no way tight around their necks and that they were sitting there and cooperating while these guys couldn't figure out how to get the chain wrapped around them. And then finally, because they had a cool spot they'd thought of, Nana gets up and throws coffee in Hobbs's face, and Page and Swerve make a little comeback while they're tied neck to neck, and then do a little flippy thing where Page gets out of it. But is it just ridiculous? And then Swerve and Page gave Hobbs a spike dead eye on the cement blocks to take him out of the picture. Okay, you're saving the big monster with this devastating thing. You were going to beat the other guy. So Hobbs rolls over and lays there, but then they got Hook and they roughed him up and they punched him in the head with the chain. And then Swerve kicked him in the head. And then they walked around and Page hit the buckshot on him and then wrapped the rope around his neck and threw him and hung him over the top rope, and Hook tapped out from being hung by the neck until semi-dead over the top rope. What they can't get out of their own way. You gave Hobbs the big move, so he's down. The big guy can't save Hook. Hit him with a double team and pin him. 1, 2, 3, right then. But it's there. The chain and the kick and the buckshot and the hanging and Brian, one more question. If you've got a chain around your neck and you're being hung by it, do you have the energy to tap out?
I wouldn't think so.
Has it happened in the UFC? Have they hung anyone who tapped out?
Not officially.
What'd you think of that last?
Oh, it was an embarrassment. It was awful. It was terrible. I hated everything on this show just about except for the MJF, the manager, the not manager, his promo guy doing the Spanish promo. I thought that was great. But this show was a big ball of nothing for me.
Ball of confusion. That's what the show is today.
You know, Swerve, at this point I've become used to the fact that Swerve's matches usually have some of the stupidest things you'll ever see. And he's obsessed with the staple gun now, I guess, and
yeah,
you know, just not good. I don't know how many people would have stayed around if we had quarter hours because of, I just don't know how many people would have stayed around for this, I guess. That's all. You took the life out. I had so much enthusiasm to talk wrestling and fucking Dynamite.
Yeah. Well, we had to get it out of the way.
Well, that was AEW Dynamite.
All right, Brian. Well, I guess we ought to start talking about something a little more pleasant to discuss. And so we're going to go back to a segment we've been doing. We're working on it. I guess we did the best 20 wrestlers in their 20s. This whole thing was instigated by somebody did a list of the best 20 wrestlers in their 20s today. And we said, is that all there is? That's what she said. There's not a lot of young 20-year-old guys or girls that it seems like are going to be Hall of Famers in the future. And so you went back and compiled a list from 1984, 40 years ago. It was a pivotal year in the wrestling business with Vince's expansion. The thing is, how many wrestlers were there of various ages that were used, that were pushed, that were on top or appearing regularly on television across all the major territories? And we did the list of the 20 best in their 20s, which had Hall of Famers out to yin yang. But then the 30s or it's even more plentiful. And we did a segment. All these, by the way, are on the YouTube channel, so you can look them up if you want to catch up with us as we play along. But we did like a third of the 30s list and had to quit because we'd gone so long. And we're going to pick that up and see how much further we can get here in a second. But just to keep everybody up to date on, I'm going to go through the names real quick. And this is not the people we've said are the absolute best of the best, but just this is who we've been through. John Studd, Bob Backlund, Buddy Rose, Bob Orton Jr., Greg Valentine, Hillbilly Jim, Hulk Hogan, Jesse Ventura, Junkyard Dog, Kamala, Don Morocco, Mass Superstar, Paul Orndorff, Nikolai Volkov, Roddy Piper, Sergeant Slaughter, Sika the Samoan, Tito Santana, Tiger Chung Lee, Tony Atlas, Jerry Briscoe, Dick Murdoch, Buddy Roberts, Adrian Adonis, Andre the Giant, Austin Idol, Bill Irwin, Bruiser Brody, Hacksaw Butch Reed, Chavo Guerrero, Dennis Condrey, Dusty Rhodes, The Great Kabuki, Hacksaw Duggan, and Jerry Lawler. Those are just the guys, some of the guys in their 30s only that were active in 1984. We've still got a heck of a list to get through on that. So I guess the point that we are making as we go through this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that Jesus Christ, there was a lot more money drawing, accomplished, experienced, well-rounded, Hall of Fame level talent in the business then than there is around the world today.
That's clear from looking at these lists and then comparing it to the modern ones. And of course, Jim, the original goal was a top 20 in their 30s. You thought that may be too difficult, but we're still on a path to possibly doing that. I think we have 11 or 12 names that are definites, some question marks. Let's see how we finish up here today. There'll probably be a part 3 as well. Jim, going back to this list, at the age of 35 in 1984, jumpin' Jim Brunzell.
And sad to say, his best years were behind him. But think about this. He'd been in the business for over 10 years at that point. He and Greg Gagne as the high flyers in the AWA for Vern. That was Vern's Rock and Roll Express years earlier. The Vern's crew was notable for their seniority. Baron von Raschke, the Crusher, and Bruiser, and Billy Robinson, and Vern himself, and Nick Bockwinkel, and a lot of those guys still had a lot of gas left in the tank. But this was his nod to, a young team that the young girls can like. His son, Greg, and Jim Brunzell, who kind of a more legitimate heartthrob type. Greg couldn't get a date on a tombstone. So Brunzell had already, as I said, been in business for 10 years and had worked on top and worked in it. Not only did he have runs in the AWA, he had been to Japan by that point. I think they used him for a run in Georgia at one time as a babyface. And then is he about to be or already just has become a killer bee with B. Brian Blair?
Not yet. It wouldn't happen in 84. It would happen in 85.
Okay, but point being, after the Killer Bees, Jim transitioned out of the business. So not to downgrade him, but at this point, he's had his best runs except for the run with the Killer Bees. That was kind of the big one at the end.
Did you get to see much of him? I know he was in Mid-Atlantic for a little bit. Did you get to see much Jim Brunzell?
Not on tape finally after 1980, but I'd seen he and who'd they work with? He and Greg defended the AWA tag team title in Memphis on the first show where Jarrett formed the alliance with Vern in September of 78. It was Lawler and Bockwinkel for the title on top. And Gagne and Brunzell defended against Frankie Lane and Mike Boyette. And Brunzell was a heck of a babyface, good athlete. He was one of those guys we talked about Roosevelt High School in Minneapolis, from Robbinsdale High School in Robbinsdale, Minnesota, with the Henning family and et cetera. And he he was kind of like in the team of Spike Huber and Steve Regal, he was Steve Regal, and Gagne was Spike Huber.
All right, Jim. Well, turning 32 in September from world class, gorgeous Jimmy Garvin.
And that's insane, right? He's 32 years old. He's already had that run in Dallas, or started the run, still in it. But Jimmy started when he was 18 years old. The Garvin family relation, Terry Garvin was not really, nobody was a Garvin, right? Nobody had the last name Garvin, but Terry started the trend, and he was French Canadian, and Ronnie Garvin's French Canadian also. And when Terry got Ronnie as a younger partner, he became a brother. And Ronnie was Jimmy's stepfather. A lot of people didn't know that. They thought they were brothers, but Ronnie legitimately was Jimmy's stepfather, had married his mother or whatever. So Jimmy started when he was like 18 years old as the skinny, bleach blonde manager of Ron and Terry, the Garvin brothers. And Ron he's wearing like regular trunks and boots, and he's got hair bleach blonde, but otherwise than that, he looked like he always did. And there's Terry Garvin with his gorgeous George hairdo and wearing a fucking nightgown. And Jimmy's somewhere in the middle, right? He's bleach blonde, but he's big around as a fucking drinking straw. But that was the way he broke in. And I had seen him on TV here he was in the Tennessee territory when he was 18 as manager of, the Garvin boys. And then he came back in 1977 as a baby face with black hair, kind of like in an afro and a mustache, and he'd gained 50 pounds. And I just started taking pictures. And I asked him, I said, "Are you the same Jimmy Garvin?" And he said, yeah, that was the way I kind of broke in, yeah. But anyway, already a big star.
It's not my fault, is what he said.
It's not his fault, not at all. But it's not my fault. I'm so gorgeous. My lips are dry, precious. I think I need a little kiss. Oh, yeah. But anyway, he'd already got the gorgeous Jimmy gimmick. But even before that, he'd been used as a high upper middle card babyface in a few different places. But now he's blossomed out with that over the previous few years. So that was prime Jimmy, because honestly, by the Freebird era of 1989, that was about the end of the road for poor Gorgeous.
84 was the Chris Adams feud, continuing into Texas Stadium, and then eventually, by the end of the year, he's headed towards the AWA and the stuff in Montreal. But is he on your list for 1984?
I honestly, as crowded as this is, and remember I mentioned Andre the Giant, fucking Dusty Rhodes, and Ric Flair. So I don't think Jimmy's going to make the top 20 in their 30s.
Jim turning 36 in 1984. Kendo Nagasaki.
Oh, goddamn, what was his name? Was it Sonoda? His real name?
I don't remember for sure.
But nevertheless, Kendo Nagasaki got the gimmick basically because they needed another kabuki. It was kind of like Mighty Igor and Ivan Putski. The kabuki gimmick got hot on Dallas TV, actually it was
Georgia.
Atlanta TV, but it was Georgia TV before that. And so Kendo Nagasaki became the kabuki gimmick in Florida, while the kabuki was in Texas. And I saw Kendo Nagasaki because that was when they were trading talent in Florida to come up, and J.J. Dillon was managing Kamala and other people to try to get Lawler. And he was okay, but it was the gimmick. And if you hadn't seen Kabuki, then Kendo Nagasaki was okay.
If you never saw Kabuki, he's better than Kabuki. If you saw Kabuki, it's a Kabuki ripoff.
Yes.
All right, so not on your list. Here's another interesting one, Jim. Turning 35 in October, Kevin Sullivan.
Wow. And again, he'd already been in the business for 12 years. No, 13 years. Because he started in maybe 14 years. He started either 70 or 71. And after training up in Boston, his first territory was East Tennessee, and he teamed with Whitey Caldwell. At that point, I mean, they started using Kevin in Florida in the mid 70s. And he was one of the top babyface teams of the decade with Mike Graham. And we've told stories about Kevin. Eddie thought of him as a kind of another son, maybe sometimes even better than when Eddie and Mike were on the outs. So Kevin worked Georgia. He had a great run where he almost revived the San Francisco business for Roy Shire in 78. He had been all over Georgia television. He'd been in Memphis and been a top heel there, member of the Jimmy Hart's first family. And he's in Florida at that point and just about to get his first spot booking. So again, you've got guys who are in their mid-30s who have been presented as stars at some level somewhere for a decade. Again, you know how I feel about Kevin. I'd like to say he's one of the top 20 guys in their 30s. But we've got, again, so many names to come yet. And it's so crowded.
All right. Lots of respect, but not on your list. Jim turning 33 in December, Larry Zbyszko.
Can you imagine when Larry Zbyszko was only 33 years old? He always has seemed more mature. And there you go. Larry's been in the business for about 10 years at that point, maybe 11. Initially a baby face. Bruno helped him get broken in, but they used him underneath for pretty much, 5 years or so until finally they talked Vince Sr. into pulling the trigger on the protege turning on the student, and it was the biggest box office turn I guess they ever did in the WWF, right? Or it was the WWF by then. They dropped an F before that.
That's right.
But they did monster business. And the thing is, Larry in the AWA was a main event guy and actually became a member of the family. We used to call him Larry Zbyszko Gagne. And because he married Vern's daughter, by the way, for people wondering. He'd been used in Georgia, but that WWF run, it would have been almost impossible to equal that business anywhere else or even in that territory ever again. But he never really got to that status again in that level of a territory doing anything. But had a long and successful career and a very entertaining son of a gun.
But not on your list.
No, well, let's go back to people that we put check marks by and see. I was evaluating them, right? Because we don't know how we're going to end up. There's so many names. We already put a check mark on Greg Valentine, Hulk Hogan, Junkyard Dog, Kamala, Paul Orndorff, Roddy Piper, Sergeant Slaughter, Tony Atlas with a question mark, Andre the Giant.
And actually, originally we said Valentine and Kamala were question marks too. So are they not
That's
question
right.
marks?
I'm sorry. No,
Okay.
Hold on. I forgot my question mark on Valentine. But again, more Andre, Bruiser Brody, Butch Reed, Dusty Rhodes, Hacksaw Doug, and Jerry Lawler. And we've got a lot. We've got Steamboat to go, Flair, Hanson. I don't want to give anything away, but holy shit, let's keep going. But
you got to evaluate. You got to evaluate the guys on who they are, not on who's coming up or who you think is coming up.
Well, yes, but I'm just saying, for the sake of, it's just ridiculous to give all these people a check mark, and then we got 40 checks. I'm holding my standards a little higher.
Well, Jim, back to the list here. Also turning 33 in 1984, Pistol Pez Whatley.
Pistol Pez, I saw Pez Whatley as a rookie. He at first was with Phil Golden's All-Star Wrestling in 72, 73 when he just broken in. He was a great amateur at UT Chattanooga. And then he started working in the Memphis territory. I guess his first run was 75-ish or so. Great athlete and exciting babyface and could talk even then. And I think later on in the 80s, it got awfully cartoon, didn't it? Shaska Whatley or the Jive Tones, or he went over the top with the interview. He was just a good-looking, happy, smiling young baby face, and I thought he was very effective. But again, good talent, but this is deep company.
All right, Jim, we're moving on here with the list. Turning 35 in May, Robert Fuller.
And there's another guy. Robert Fuller in 1984 had been in the business for 13 years and had been a main event guy in a variety of the Southern territories for 10 of them. He was Southern Heavyweight Champion in 1974, worked a program with Lawler, young, good-looking, early 20s kid, but bouncing around between the Tennessee territories, Nick Goulas's end, the Memphis end of Jerry Jarrett, Knoxville, that his brother Ron would end up buying. Robert had booked Knoxville by the time he was 28 or whatever. Unfortunately, that success did not replicate itself over at Memphis. Had worked Florida and Georgia. Go ahead.
Or Georgia as a booker.
Yeah, or Georgia. Yeah, oh, God, I forgot. He booked that Georgia spell for a while there.
Yeah, before Vince, he was the previous person to say, hey, let's give Stan Frazier a national stage.
Well,
as a babyface.
All the guys from the Tennessee territory loved Frazier for the entertainment value in the locker room. But yeah, I mean, a legendary name and the most giant cock in all of creation. And I don't mean that attitude-wise. I mean that actually literally. But it's so deep here. The next name alone is going to tell you why he's not on my best 20 list.
All right, well, not on your list, and you keep teasing it. You want to give everything away, Jim. 31 years old in February, Ricky Steamboat.
Boom, there, that's got to be a check. That's got to be a check because...
Coming off a major 83.
Well, yeah, and I mean a major decade between the time he broke in, which was legitimately 74. So 10 years. And I mean, he'd already been a phenomenon in the Carolinas since 77, I guess it was. They started pushing him. He, at that point, had already had the first few rivalries with Flair, but was one of the best in-ring performers in the business, had again become one of the top box office attractions in the Carolinas, had worked on Georgia television, had made shots out in various places, had been to Japan and was highly thought of, had set the attendance record, he and Youngblood against Slaughter and Kernodle in Greensboro. So in-ring talent, personality, box office, and he's going to have a run in the WWF, and then he's going to come back and have the greatest series of matches of all time with Ric Flair in the next 5 years. So, yeah, he's a check mark.
And, of course, he would be wrestling at various points in 84. He would also retire for a bit in 84, but still one of the best in the business. Turning 35 in February, the NWA World Champion Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Do you think we should give him a check? Do you think, I mean, we don't even need to do the bio, do we?
Well, the question I'll ask you is he 35 already here? At what point do you think Ric Flair was a Hall of Famer? He's a clear Hall of Famer by 89. But at what point was it, yeah, he's an all-timer?
it would have had to have been maybe 86, wouldn't it? With now, not only has he held the world title a couple of times, but now he's doing the stadium shows with Nikita and then with Dusty and the Great American Bashes and the matches with Wyndham. He's drawing at the gate. He's performing in the ring. The promos of TBS's ratings are through the roof at that point. By 86, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I was even wondering if it's before then. I mean, he's the last touring NWA champion, and everywhere he goes does not everywhere. I mean, Kansas City didn't do big business, but
yeah.
Business is up everywhere when he comes into town.
Well, but I mean, we were thinking of it that way when he came to, Mid-South in 84 and was like, I want you guys to come to the Carolinas and work for Jimmy Crockett. We're like, holy shit, this is the guy here. But I didn't know whether the fans' viewpoint, because we were close to the situation, whether it had caught up or not, but it has to be between 84 and 86 that there's no doubt at that point what's going on.
Well, no doubt he is on the list. Jim, you brought this man up before, turning 39 in March. Ron Garvin.
And here's another thing. Ronnie Garvin was 4 years older than Flair. And everybody's went, Garvin's too old for the title in 88 or 7 or whatever it was. Garvin had started, Jesus Christ, he'd been in the business for 20 years in 1984. Because I think he started when he was like 19. So already, I talked about the push where the Garvin brothers were a top heel team in all the Southern territories, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee. And then he had gone to Knoxville as a single, and the one-man gang, Ronnie Garvin, first as a heel and then later on as that gimmick Hacksaw Duggan kind of babyface, was one of the top guys in Southeastern for 3 or 4 years straight. And then they fucked Ron Fuller over and he spent that time in exile in ICW.
And you could argue out of all the guys that jumped, and did everything against Ron Fuller and the NWA office, he was the most important one. He was the biggest star.
Yeah. He was the babyface. He was the guy that's how they were able to pull that, because Ronnie Garvin was the guy not a member of the family, as in Ron or Robert or the Jimmy Golden, the cousins, whatever. Bob Armstrong was an honorary member of the family. He was the guy that got over, and then he ended up trying to steal the territory. That's why they never wanted guys outside the family to get over. But he also got out of there quickly because he was a legitimate talent, whereas some of the other guys weren't going to go very far, and Savage hadn't proven himself anywhere yet. Ronnie had been around and promoters liked him, and he could work his ass off, one of the best workers in the business. So that's why he was able to get out of there before it crashed and go back to Georgia and et cetera. But those matches with he and Flair, because Garvin loved it rough and violent and legitimate, and Flair loved to have a match that you couldn't see through. So those TV matches or the house show matches they had, if you go back, it looks like these two guys are trying to fucking gouge each other's eyes out. And they're hitting each other so hard, you can tell they're taking, layers of skin off their chests. Flair had a tube of antibiotic skin ointment that he had to put on his chest every night after the matches with Garvin, because to keep from getting infected, because Garvin had chopped the entire top layer of his chest off just night after night, and they wouldn't, it's like wahoo, they wouldn't lighten up. But the people are like, fuck, those guys are mad. Like Steve Kern and Nelson Royal turn it up a couple of notches. So anyway,
we're talking the list.
Let's give him a question mark, because he's already done a lot and he's got a few more things to do that decade.
And he's in Georgia. He's a star in Georgia at the beginning of 84.
But he's about to go to the Carolinas, and he and Wyndham were a top tag team. And then he had the run with the belt and the run with Flair and the blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
All right, question mark. Jim turning 35 in August. Stan Hansen.
I think he's automatically got to get a check.
Yeah, I think so.
But again, he's been in the business for 10 years. They broke him and Brody in at the same time in the old McGurk territory, Louisiana and Mississippi. And the guys that they had to work with were just dying because these two monsters were just beating the shit out of them. But within a couple of years, he already had that spot with Bruno in the WWF and, turned a negative into a positive when he accidentally hurt Bruno and broke his neck, but they got to be on the Shea Stadium card with Ali and Inoki, and that's what saved the Ali and Inoki closed circuit in the Northeast because Bruno and Hansen, the revenge match, drew such big houses. They were the only ones that didn't die. Georgia died, Tennessee died, all the other closed circuit showings. I think Chicago sucked too. But the Northeast, because of Bruno and Hansen, that worked. And then within a year or two, he's in Japan, and then he's got to have a check, doesn't he?
Well, again, we're talking 1984. It's him and Brody as a team in All Japan. Absolutely. And he's one of the best, and he's one of the biggest stars in Japan. Absolutely. All right, Jim.
Yes.
Turning 33 in September, the fabulous one, Steve Keirn.
Who we've been talking about so much lately. Keirn, same thing. He was of the Florida class of all of Mike Graham's contemporaries that he went to school with, and they had used Steve at the start. That's why he had that aggressive and realistic wrestling style, but still to say the movement's all his own, but he was kind of plain straight ahead Steve Keirn, good guy, until he got to Tennessee and they showed him how to throw a little showbiz in, and he got the Fabs gimmick. But as far as being used in Florida, he and Mike Graham were a top babyface tag team. He'd been used as a singles champion for different belts, TV titles, etc. in Florida and Georgia. I think he had worked the Carolinas on the middle, maybe, by that point. But then when he came to Tennessee in 81, he became a top babyface as himself first. And the fans took to him, not to the level of Lawler, Dundee, Valiant, or Dutch or whatever, but they took to him. But then the Fabs gimmick started in September of 82, and from then on, they were a phenomenon. And especially in Tennessee, they, I think, did they leave for Vern in 84?
Oh, yeah.
Or 85? It was 84.
84 is the year of the new fabulous one. So, yeah, it's 84.
That's right. And what happened was they were doing, big business. And I say that the Fabs never sold out Memphis like Lawler did. The Fabs drew, especially in Louisville and Nashville and the other places besides Memphis. And they did well in Memphis. People loved them in Memphis, but they never had the big match like Lawler did that would sell the Coliseum out. But for that period of time from September of 82 until whatever point, early 84, they were without doubt the most popular baby faces that they'd had in some time. Even with Dundee had been there for a while and had been back and forth as, toward the end there as a heel and then switched back. And Handsome Jimmy was just in and out. But the Fabs were steady, and they drew, especially at the spot shows, they drew big crowds. But even though I think they ended up on a $1,500 a week guarantee, and they were splitting sometimes up to $4,000 a week in pictures and T-shirts. So it was a ridiculous amount of money for the Tennessee territory at that point. But Vern could get them into the Denvers and the Minneapolises and the place where you got, $1,000 or $1,500, $2,000 payoff in one night each. And so they made that move, and it hurt everybody because Jarrett tried to make Eddie Gilbert and Tommy Rich the new Fabs when Fargo said, well, Kern and Lane went off and didn't do what I told them to. They've left all of you people in Tennessee. So I got these new boys, and that didn't work. And meanwhile, Vern didn't understand not only the Fabulous One's gimmick, but he also, there was no Jackie Fargo in the AWA to introduce the Fabulous Ones and give them a reason for being. Because so they really should have been heels. And then they're working with the Road Warriors that are heels for Vern, but the people are cheering them as baby faces. So the Fabs in the AWA didn't work out, but still, Kern doesn't get a top 20 check because, again, Flair, Steamboat, Dusty, Andre, etc.
But you can't base it on that,
he was on top of things at that point.
Again, I don't think he would be on it for 84, but I don't think you could base it on who's there or who would be there. It has to be on the actual person's year.
Well, he didn't have as good an 84 as Dusty or fucking Flair or Steamboat and all these other people either. That's what I'm saying.
All right, well, Jim, turning 31 in December, Tatsumi Fujinami.
And boy, now here's the thing. We do not have on this list the entire New Japan and All Japan rosters. Or this would be an even lengthier and a whole different kettle of fish. But because Fujinami would travel to the United States, especially whenever Inoki came over, or Fujinami had shots in the Garden and the Northeast at various points in the early 80s. So he kind of qualifies for both places. And while I'll violate my rule here, one of my rules that he couldn't cut a promo for the United States of America, but in Japan in 1984, and really from 79, 80, maybe through the mid 80s, Fujinami was one of the best guys in the business.
Through at least the late 80s. He just happened to
be through at least the late 80s.
Yeah.
He just happened to be in Japan. So I'm going to give Fujinami a check mark.
All right. I agree.
Because big matches, featured as a main eventer, great performer.
Jim, this next man would turn 30 in 1984, and you would spend the latter half of the year around him. Ted DiBiase.
Boy, here you go. I think Ted's got to get a check. Because especially at this point in time, he's been working for at least 10 years. I think over 10 years at that point, from the time he first broke in. He had the advantage and sometimes the curse of all the best trainers because everybody, the Funks and Murdoch family, everybody knew his dad. And so they went out of their way when he got started. And again, the second generation name, opens up some doors, but it also increases expectations. But Teddy, by, the middle part of the 70s, they were using him in the McGurk territory, and Watts on and off for the next 10 years, even before Watts started Mid-South when he was still booking for McGurk, loved Ted DiBiase. And Teddy said one time he was there in Mid-South for so long without getting out and taking a break that his hair started falling out. But at this point, he had been on Georgia television. He'd had a run up in the WWF. He'd had, what was the North American title he had up there before the Intercontinental title?
That's right.
Was that what it was? That was 78-ish. He had been considered one of the three guys that might be the next NWA world champion at one point, and it went to Flair. I think, and then he's not even the $1 million man yet. And he's going to have a hell of a run after that. So I think.
And let's talk 84. Big star in Georgia on national TV. Returns to Mid-South, big angle with Jim Duggan getting bloodied up in the parking lot. You don't see it.
Yeah.
You just see DiBiase return and tell you about it. Big heel run. That's his 84.
I think he's got a check.
I think so too. Jim, also turning 30 in January. Tully Blanchard.
Whoo. Talent-wise, Tully was right up there with DiBiase. He could talk his ass off, the cocky little prick that he was. He was a tremendous worker in a believable style that partially made up for his lack of size because he was so aggressive. He had never had the opportunity to really be featured as a regular main eventer any place besides San Antonio because his father was the promoter until
84.
I was about to say, it was at 83 maybe, but when San Antonio started sucking hind tit, as we used to say back down south, that's when he actually got out and went to work for Crockett. And you think about this, 84, 85, 86, 87, Tully Blanchard had an incredible run for Jim Crockett. And in 80, it ended in 88 when he went to the WWF. They spent 1 year there and his career was over. So Tully's had a great 84 and would go on to have the best years of his life, but he's only got 5 more years in his whole fucking career. That's a shame when you think about it, because he's in 84. He's been working. Did he start in 75? I think maybe 76, whatever. He's been working about 7 or 8 years and he's only got 5 more to go. Let's put a question mark.
Okay. I would consider him, because he may be the highlight of 1984 Mid-Atlantic TV, which was a year of transition from everything in 83 to Dusty Rhodes' booking. He got a big push. He's one of the highlights. His matches were good. Good promo. But again, we'll talk about it when we review the question marks. Jim also turning 30 at the beginning of 84. Masafuchi. Your old pal.
And the reason he's on this list is because he was in America at this point. They sent Fuchi and Onita, to America in 81. And they worked as a tag team in Florida. Then they came to Tennessee and they worked here. Tojo managed them. They had the Tupelo concession stand brawl number 3. And then, well, was he still here or had he just gone back? Because they went.
I think he may have gone back.
I think they went to the McGurk territory after they were here. And then I think that's when the 84, they went back. And Onita would end up over the next year or two getting a push as the new junior heavyweight for Baba, but then he hurt his knees and couldn't do his shit anymore and had to come back later on with the whole frontier martial arts thing. But Masafuchi, nice guy and good, solid worker and had incredible longevity. But on this list, I don't think he has anything to crow about.
All right, Jim, at least a few more here today. Turning 31 in July, Billy Jack.
Billy Jack Haynes, baby. And again,
he wasn't Haynes yet, though, was he?
Well, I'm just saying that because I like the way it flows off my dusty tongue. You know, there's so many names that are household names that had already been so experienced and had been used in a variety of places. Here's a guy who really was kind of hidden because he started late at an older age and had only been in the business a couple of years at this point, had been in Florida and Portland because he's from that neck of the woods and was about to, at the end of the year, go to Dallas very briefly and then would start his on and off relationship with Don Owens, the promoter there, and starting his own business and running his own self out of the wrestling business. So when I did the Dark Side of the Ring deal on him, we said he made an incredible impact wherever he went because of just his striking visual look and just the sight of the guy. And he could do shit in the ring, you know, for a guy that size, but except for being iconic for that run in Portland before he got too big for his britches, he really would only drop in someplace every once in a while, stay a very short period of time, get crossways with him, and be gone. And the same thing happened. Dusty liked him, brought him to the Carolinas in, 85, and he wasn't there very long. So an interesting asterisk, but you can't really put him on this list as being one of the top guys. You know, it's crowded and he was in and out so much.
He'd be on this list of PWI was the ones putting it together.
Yes.
Jim, 33 in December, Ricky Choshu.
Woo.
And this is the year he jumps to All Japan with his stable.
Yes. And also, again, we were trying to say, I said with Fujinami, well, he counts because he made shots in America and he was just such a tremendous in-ring performer. I don't think Choshu was the performer that Fujinami was, but he may have been more influential in their business over there because of the position he was put in and the way he was able to make the jump. But did he ever really make any shots here at all?
I think in 87 or 88, he worked for Vern in Vegas for a taping. I'm serious.
That almost sounds like a fucking National Lampoon movie. Working for Vern in Vegas. I mean, if this was a list of influential Japanese wrestlers, he would knock everybody but probably Hogan and Hansen off the list already. But for the kind of sort of motif we were going for, is this is America and not worldwide, he ain't got it.
All right. Wow, you're not putting Ricky Choshu. I would probably either put him on my list or my question mark list for 84.
Well, but it's kind of a different list because we said at the top, we didn't encompass the world of Mexico and you know, Johnny Saint and Steve Wright and Big Daddy aren't on here. And so how far are we going with this? How geographically?
Well, Jim, just so we could try to get a few more names in today before we wrap up this segment and move on to modern wrestling talk. A few more names here today. Pretty sure these will be rather quick. Turning 39 in March, SD Jones.
Do you know I saw the best match that SD Jones ever had?
No.
For whatever reason, in 1976, a guy popped up on the card at the Louisville Gardens named Rosie Jones. And Rosie, I believe, was because that's a gimmick he was using at that time, was short for Roosevelt. But the point is, they booked Rosie Jones versus Jerry Lawler. And I'm like, what the fuck? I've never heard of this fucking guy. Sat there and watched. This was before I was even a photographer. Sat there and watched the match, and Rosie Jones became my favorite wrestler. Because apparently they had the thought of making him a top baby face, or at least somebody who was going to be used for a while. And because he was black, Memphis always liked black baby faces. That's why Zulu had was on top of 3 sellouts, whether he drew them or not. And Lawler had a match with him to make him look like he was the god. And just he got over like crazy. The people practically gave him a standing ovation. It was exciting. And we're like, where'd this guy come from? And then he was in a territory, I think about another off the top of my head, 2 or 3 weeks in middle card matches, and we never saw him again. So I don't know what the fuck happened. But no, SD Jones doesn't go on the list as a best 20 in their 30s.
Turning 33 in May, Mark Rollerball Rocco.
See, you prick. Because, well, I just said we aren't doing the whole world of sport roster, and here Mark Rocco, whether Japan or Britain, he completely different style. He was the Black Tiger against Tiger Mask in New Japan in 83-ish. I loved the style and the way he worked. I've never heard him cut a promo. He completely unknown in the United States at this time, completely. Nobody would have fucking been able to identify him in a police lineup, but he was over in, as I said, in England, and had a gimmick that he was over in Japan, and I loved his work. But I don't think he fits this list. And Adrian Street said, just a fantastic worker, and he had large boils or zits of some kind all over his body, and Adrian hated to work with him.
All right, well, that's Mark Rollerball Rocco not on your list. Jim,
the Boilermaker.
A couple more here today, and then we'll pick up next time.
Yes.
Turning 33 in February, Dos Caras.
Again, if you're looking for a Lucha Libre list, he would be high on it. He was featured as Mascaras' brother. He was featured from Jesus Christ, the time he got in the business in the early 70s. He also had runs in Texas and California. So he did work some in this country. And, if you probably in the mid to late 70s asked the average magazine reading wrestling fan, name 3 Mexican wrestlers, they'd go Mil Mascaras, Dos Caras, and El Solitario.
But not on your list.
I don't think so.
Turning 37 in March. Wow, I didn't realize he was that old. Killer Khan.
Boy, he was, again, a great heel in a variety of the territories, and great gimmick, and he got the credit for breaking Andre's ankle. And what's the name he worked at in Japan? Or am I thinking of someone else? But anyway, he was never, except for the Andre run, he was never like a guy that was featured in the main events of a major territory all on his own, was he? He was in groups in Florida, Georgia, and things. Again, good worker. Does he stand out in this crowded field?
84 is the year he has the match with Terry Gordy in Dallas. All right, was it Dallas or was it Fort Worth? Well, he has the match with Terry Gordy in Texas in World Class, and it's one of the best matches of the year. He's one of the central figures in the babyface turn of the Freebirds.
Well, that's true. He just kind of wandered into that, though, didn't he?
All right, so not on your list for 1984.
Question mark.
But we already have a pretty full list and a pretty full question mark list, and we will finish it up.
Go one more, because I'm tickled at this. I want to hear you say it.
One more, turning 37 in January, from the Sheepherders, Luke Williams.
37! I had to, so people don't think I'm crazy, or maybe you already have that assumption, but because of this, that was when the Sheepherders would cut promos when Luke was partners with Jonathan Boyd, and they came to Tennessee. Jonathan Boyd was cutting the whole promo while Luke would just stood behind him and made the weird, crazy faces. And then Jonathan Boyd would say, "And mate, let me tell you, we've been champions in 37 bloody countries." And then Luke would chime in, 37! And every once in a while, we'd be at a spot show, and if somebody had been outside, they'd come in. If Luke would say, "How's the house, mate? How many people we got out there?" He'd say, 37. But I just wanted to hear the 37. I love Luke Williams to death, but And boy, again, he never looked young, did he? Because he Sweet William with crazy Nick Carter, who became Butch, Luke and Butch, they always looked old and weird and crazy. But they'd been at 84. Luke had been in the business almost 20 years at that point, because the Royal Kangaroos, he was in that with Boyd, right? It was Boyd and Butch and Boyd and Luke at various times, and then they became the Kiwi Sheepherders and then the Sheepherders. But nevertheless, they'd been a team since the early 70s. So another experienced guy, but no, I don't think, unfortunately, as a single and on his own, he can make the crowded field.
Well, there it is, Jim. That is our look today. Part 2 of trying to put together the top 20 in their 30s for 1984. We'll pick up next time.
And boy, this is a crowded list because, oh yeah, we got more people coming up.
Stop being a spoiler. Why do you keep spoiling everything for
Because I'm saying it's insane that there's this list of 70, 80 guys that are all Hall of Famers that are all in their 30s. And Brian, I tell you what, the thing about it is the guys in the 80s, a lot of them didn't take care of their money. You ever had a bag flip?
A bag flip? What's that?
Have you ever had a bag flip?
Is this some kind of perverted thing that you guys used to do back in the day?
No, this is not the Dirty Sanchez type of item. It's a bag flip. That's what Kevin Sullivan used to call it when back in the 80s, for some reason, right before the fanny packs. And then the fanny packs carried on this tradition. But guys in the wrestling business, I saw it in Louisiana. Then there was still the days in Charlotte. The guys that would start making money when they're young and they start getting all this gold jewelry and they start carrying cash around with them, they got those bank bags, the zipper bank. This is First National Bank. It's got a zipper on it that businesses would put deposits in, and they were carrying those around as wallets. A bank bag. Like advertising, here, I have valuable shit, because they're not only young and have a lot of fucking money, but they're also wrestlers and they want to fucking show off. But those bags, they're hard to keep track of when you're distracted, when you're doing something, you're working out, you're sitting down at the restaurant, you're taking a shit and you set your shit down and some hand comes underneath from the other stall and boom, and you got your pants around your ankles. That was at least a cover story of more than one wrestler. And Kevin Sullivan got to the point where guys just at random would be sitting somewhere, locker room or in the fucking airport, and they would jump up and look left and look right, and then they'd grab their bag because they had a bag flip. That's what Kevin would call it. When they realized, oh shit, where's my bag? And it was a goddamn horrible way to live. A horrible way to live. These people were tortured, Brian. I'm telling you, they were tortured. You've never heard of the bag flip.
I hadn't. This is an unexpected run-in here. The top 20 in their 30s for 1984. Yes. Kevin Sullivan.
It reminded me. And see, here's the thing, because when Stace and I used to travel down the highways and byways, we'd stop at a gas station or a fast food place or what, a rest stop, and we'd get back in the car, and I'd pull out. And see, I didn't like to stick my big old fat wallet with all of the stuff that I'd accumulated in it in my back pocket and then drive, because I'm sitting there on it. It's like sitting on a baseball. What the fuck? I would put it in the console of my vehicle. But then 5 miles down the road or whatever, I would suddenly think, wait a minute, did I do that? Because I can't feel it and I can't see it. And I would lift the lid of the console there so I could make sure. And Stacey, you're having a bag flip. And it's a very troubling thing. You know how you can solve this problem, Brian?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know anything about what's going on. No.
You don't have any idea what's happening in the world around you. Our friends over at Ridge, the Ridge Wallet. It solves the bag flip because whereas a bank bag was so big and bulky and showy, and if you're just a regular jack-off walking down the street and you got one of those, somebody's going to hit you over the head and steal it. And those wallets that we used to have back in the old days, the old cowhide leather and the big, it turns into a goddamn giant brick that you've got folded up and stuffed in your pants. And as a result, either it looks like you're throwing your sacroiliac off, or more importantly, you've got some kind of boil or goiter that needs to be lanced and drained on your body somehow. You don't want to look like, you'll never get laid like that. Studies have shown that women do not give blowjobs to guys that have large pus-filled goiters.
There are no studies we know of, so let's not quote any studies that don't exist. And I don't even know why this would be a study. Why don't we get away from this, I think is the point.
But here's the thing. You don't want to do all that. You want the Ridge wallet because it's a unique, slim, and modern design. I have one in my hand right here. And this is indestructible. You can run over it with a car. You could probably take a hammer to it and nothing would be damaged because it's made out of titanium, aluminum, and carbon fiber. So I think you could set this on fire too if you were lost in the jungle and heat yourself from it. But nevertheless,
I don't think that's one of the features, for the record.
And I bet you it holds up to 12 credit cards plus cash. There's a little cash strap on the side here. It's no bigger than a credit card itself, but it's terribly sturdy and rigid so that you don't fuck up anything inside of it. You can, as I said, the money clip, also maybe a little note from your paramour that you want to keep close to your heart or your ass, wherever you're putting this wallet. And I've mentioned before, it makes a great brass knuckle if somebody tries to mug you, and an Oriental fighting star. But what's more, I've figured that if you're really strong and you pull this cash strap out, way out, it's like a goddamn miniature crossbow. If you put like an ink pen in here, and you could put somebody's eye out. But if somebody...
Listen, I think the point...
Well, if somebody's trying to attack you and you're behind a turret, you're trying to fend them off. See, hear that pop? Boy, you draw that back and...
What are you doing? You're just hitting your hand with it? Are you punching it?
I'm drawing back the indestructible cash strap and shooting it like a bow and arrow.
Again, and you're good with a bow and arrow. We've all learned that. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, forget about these examples. The point you want to think about is you have nothing to worry about with Ridge. And of course, you want it to worry about throwing out your back with a big wallet. You want it to worry about where your wallet is. It'll be compact and sturdy, and there, the criminals and pickpockets won't be able to get to it because it'll be stuffed into your tight pants.
Here, you can still wear loose pants if you want, because here's the thing. It's also got RFID blocking technology to keep you safe from digital pickpocketers. So you got this thing in your back pocket and somebody reaches their hand, as soon as it detects somebody else's fingerprints besides yours, automatically sharp steel spikes shoot out 6 inches in every direction from this thing. Now, I would advise you wear 2 pair of underwear because there could be some collateral damage.
Let's
you want to try to put some padding in there. But that son of a bitch trying to pickpocket you will have a hard time. That's why there's over 100,000 5-star reviews. You can have peace of mind. Everything that Ridge makes has a lifetime warranty. This is literally the last wallet you're ever going to have to buy because it's good to the end of your lifetime, a lifetime warranty. Now, if you get to be a wise ass and you have this thing 70, 75 years and it may start to wear out, then they may arrange to, put a hit out on you.
Jesus Christ, they're not going to arrange to put a hit out on anyone. What the hell are you saying? We're talking about a wallet, the Ridge wallet, a great wallet, a sturdy wallet, secure wallet.
You can't take advantage of this lifetime warranty by living too long. Now, after 75 years,
why is this your
open season.
Mention the warranty. You don't have to worry about problems.
They don't want to break their
75 years from now.
They don't want to break their string. Nobody's ever outlived one of these wallets yet. They don't want them to start now. And I'll tell you what, they've also got free shipping and a 99-day risk-free trial. That means you can get it and you can have it for 99 days. You can try it out. If you don't like it, you send it back and they'll send you your money back. Of course, now you've got to leave all the shit in it. They want your cards.
No,
your
you don't. You don't. You send it back as it was sent to you, but you won't have to worry about that because, like, we have them here and we love them. And I'm going to hopefully get a few more for other members of the family.
How many wallets you carry?
That's none of your business. The business is in your wallet. And, of course, your wallet needs to be there and needs to be compact.
Wallet needs to be in your pants. That means you've got your business in your pants, ladies and gentlemen. And right now, for a limited time, our listeners can get 10% off this fine self-defense item / wallet at Ridge. Just go to Ridge, RIDGE, Ridge.com, and use the code JCE at checkout. You're all set. You're going to get 10% off, and that's, see, right there, 10% off with a lifetime warranty. Well, you can't beat that because even if you don't live 75 more years, you're getting 10% off. And after you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about it. And please tell them that Brian said all kinds of horrible things, but I corrected
Do not say that in any way. You could say you heard about it right here on the Jim Cornette Experience. You heard about a great wallet, the Ridge wallet. Ridge.
Don't have a bag flip.
All right. Well,
all righty then.
Remains your show.
Well, not for long, because now we have come to our closing segment where we are going to talk about the earth-shaking events that have occurred in the world of the WWE. I guess that's redundant. World of the World Wrestling Entertainment. Which World Wrestling Entertainment still doesn't work for me. But nevertheless, they were in Berlin. In Berlin they were in. Because Stuttgart was booked. That's how I learned geography from the global geography from the hometowns of all of the foreign menace heels that were in wrestling. Baron von Raschke was from Stuttgart, Germany. Fucking Ivan Koloff was from Moscow, Russia. Was there ever a wrestler from Greenland?
Ooh, not off the top of my head that I could think of one, but there must have been someone. But you're right about that. That's something that's pretty much gone right now. It used to be, especially for America, if you were a kid and you watched wrestling, you would learn geography before all of your friends. You would know the map, yes. You would know the states and the big cities in the states before everyone.
But it was a simpler time back then. Now the kids can look anything up. That means they don't know anything, and they never look anything up. They just don't bother to learn it because they know they can look it up. Anyway, they were in Berlin, and they're back to 3 hours. And just to be perfectly honest with you, I'm going to tell you what we're not going to talk about here at the top of this so we can get to the big news, the big main event, the big earth-shaking, cataclysmic, Godzilla-sized surprise title change on the television. I know they're in Berlin, and those people are going to like anything because it's the international audience syndrome where they don't get to see this live and in person. You know, some people probably that were there the first time in their lives, but not often in their markets, so they're naturally forgiving. But they've gone back to 3 hours, and this is what they gave us before the main event started. Trick Williams versus Ray Phoenix. And by that was after Trick interrupted Randy Orton's promo, so Orton beat him up, and then Miz jumped Orton, and Orton beat him up too. And that sounds more exciting than it was. Trick Williams and Ray Phoenix, Trick tricked him. We got Alexa Bliss against Julia. And then, boy, I'll tell you what, old Lash Legend, she may have opened a branch of fucking Frigidaire next to Nia Jax, because if Nia's the refrigerator, I think Lash is the freezer. With apologies to Freezer Thompson from the old Memphis TV. They're pretty comparable in size. I think Lash has got an inch or two, and they beat up Alexa Bliss. It looked like two parade balloons beating up a Barbie doll. So I felt sorry for her. And that was the first hour of the show. At 9 o'clock, we got Solo and all of the Tongas against the Wyatt and all of the Six. And this is a AEW type presentation here. The painted faces and the fucking Halloween masks and everything. And then we were at 9:30. Then we got Alba Fire against Jordan Grace and Carmelo Hayes in a long match against Shaky Nakamura. And we were at 10:15. That 2 hours and 15 minutes for what I described, and the intermittent travelogue, commercial spot, plug, billboard, backstage update that takes up the rest of the time. And then there's Cody in the back. And he does a little pre-match promo about Drew may have Dusty's watch. And last week, he may have burned a picture of me and Dusty or whatever, but that's lazy, Drew, because Dusty doesn't make the comeback. I make the comeback. It was kind of like the modern day version of Dusty saying, well, I ain't going to do no jobs in front of 70,000 people in a Superdome. And then after this, of course, I'm looking forward to the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania.
Hey, if you don't mind, let me ask you a couple questions before we get into the main event match here. One, actually just a statement. I will say, and I could not blame you for not wanting to watch him against Nakamura, Carmelo Hayes is on a string of having some good matches. They gave him a long time, but the show is now 3 hours, and
yes, I'm happy for him.
Secondly, with the Cody McIntyre main event, the 3 different stipulations for the 3 different falls of a 2 out of 3 fall match, technically. Obviously, when Cactus Jack and Eddie Gilbert did it for Joel Goodhart, it was spread throughout the night. They did it all in one lump at the end of the show after having to sit through everything. Do you think they should have split it up so that it started with that, maybe around the 9 o'clock hour is the second match, and then you end with it?
Well, see, that's what I was thinking also. And for people who don't know, because we're just assuming these young whippersnappers, one of the big independent promotions of the early 90s was the Joel Goodhart's Tri-State Wrestling in Philadelphia. This was pre-ECW, and they booked the show with Cactus Jack and Eddie Gilbert to have a 2 out of 3 match series where they didn't phrase it exactly like they did with Cody and Drew here. They told people ahead of time, we're going to have 3 different matches. One match is going to be the one stipulation. And what were they? Do you remember them off the top of your head? They ended up in the barbed wire, right?
Barbed wire was, I believe, the last one. One of them was either Falls Count Anywhere or No DQ.
I think Falls Count Anywhere. So it was a Falls Count Anywhere. It was a barbed wire match, and it was some other stipulation. And like you said, they did the first match at the first of the show, and then gave them matches in between so they could rest, because they had full fucking matches. And I was there. Again, I don't have it in front of me what the time on every match was, but they were full matches of, at the time was normal to be between 10 and 20 minutes. Were you there that night live?
Unfortunately, I was not. I wish I was.
But nevertheless, you know, they, and I mean, that was the one where Cactus had told Eddie, break the bottle over my head, and they didn't bake it. He thought that he just hit it. But Eddie was really trying to work it, and that just makes it worse, because then he just was bap, and you heard the clonk on Cactus's head. Oh, God damn it. But anyway, that was what they did there. I can see the argument that it would have been better here on this 3-hour television program to spread them out, go a little bit longer in at least the first one. We'll get to my breakdown here in a second. but they wouldn't have been able to do the match like this that they wanted to have, because each finish led into the other one. And there was a reason why that at the end of fall 2, before the cage lowered, that, Drew had to be down where he could be trapped and blah, blah, blah. So what they did here flowed from one thing to the other. They would have had to done different finishes. And I think it might have helped the viewership because it would build more drama. Well, we want to see how this is going to turn out, and they've sprinkled it through the show. But it also might have made it more difficult for the participants to come up with some shit to do because it amounts to, they had a regular match and 2 what used to be blow-off matches, Falls Count Anywhere, and an inside a steel cage, and then they still had a fuck finish. So, I mean, the modern booking, it's not as easy as it used to be. It was in the 80s, a lot of times we didn't like 2 out of 3 fall matches, just regular 2 out of 3 fall matches, because the people didn't see that many of them anymore. And so a lot of times they didn't understand it. They would say the big pop would be on the first fall because they thought, oh, that's it. Oh, there's 2 more. And it was awkward trying to get 3 finishes, out of an angle match in the same night, blah, blah, blah. But I'm droning on. Point is, what they did with this was just immediately one went into the other. And did you notice that they have brackets because they couldn't lower the cage in the old days. Nobody had that budget. When they lower that fucking cage, there's those brackets right by the apron, the box-like metal things that the cage anchors into. And boy, howdy, a guy trying to take a bump through the ropes or off the apron and not being used to those being there, that was making me nervous the whole time, because that could fuck you up. And that's just, anyway, it's not an issue when the cage is in place, because you couldn't fuck yourself up, but you could while they're bumping with that shit already there. And one more thing, Brian, before we get to this deal. Is Tony Khan booking SmackDown now? Have we heard this on the...
What makes you say that?
Well, next week in London, they're going to have 4 qualifying matches, and the 4 winners of those matches are going to have a 4-way at Saturday night's main event, with the winner of that getting a title shot at the Royal Rumble.
Before Tony Khan existed as a wrestling booker, if you think of all the things we were complaining about with WWE, and Vince McMahon deserves the lion's share of the blame because he was in charge and people were writing to please him. And if it wasn't something that pleased him, you'd have to go rewrite it the day of the show, whatever it may be. But it's the same people. It's Bruce Pritchard. It's Ed Koskey. It's Triple H. It's Road Dogg. It's all the same crew. Michael Hayes. It's the same bunch of people. And that's why it's starting to feel more and more like the same old show, just with Lee Fitting producing it. The backstage segments, they're turning back into what they used to be. Just ignore the camera right in front of you and have these personal conversations. When things are hot, you get away with it. They did. Things aren't that hot anymore, in terms of at least the feeling around the TV, and certainly the ratings seem to reflect that, what we hear about these shows. It's not a good show. There's a reason Triple H, his booking was rejected by the South Korean wrestling fans. I think more and more you're hearing people fed up with the way WWE TV is being done right now.
Well, but here's the thing. It's not even necessarily the booking or confined to the booking, or the booking being the biggest part of it. It's that they're doing the same thing. They're in a habit. They're in a rut. They're in not only the multiple man matches over and over, and the tropes, as the kids call them, now that they have started within 10 or 15 years ago or whatever, a lot of this stuff, that now they just keep doing it because they don't remember how they used to do it before they started doing that. But now if they would do that, it would look so much fresher. But there used to be some element of, we're going to have a new set for the show. We're going to have a new fucking look for the show. Lee Fitting brought a lot of new production in, and it looks so much better than the Kevin Dunn days. But what they're shooting, it still kind of looks the same, and they do it all the same, and the music gets cued the same way. And when they need to break some of these, it's just over and over. They need to break some of these patterns. But having said that, finally, 2 hours and 22 minutes into the show, the main event, here comes Drew. Then here comes Cody. And they have the introductions and they ring the bell. It's 10:30. And the last hour is commercial free. See, okay, they're gonna go a while. Well, the regular match was first and it started hot. Cody's on fire, and Drew tried to get Cody to get disqualified at one point, but Cody wouldn't fall for it, but he was still kicking Drew's ass and all over him. And Drew McIntyre, for a guy that size, he knows how to sell as a heel. And Cody Germaned him. Boom. And he went to German him again later on, and Drew was holding on, and he pulled the turnbuckle pad off. And as the referee grabbed it, was going to try to replace it, Drew kicked Cody in the balls and hit him with a claymore. Boom! 1, 2, 3 in 4 minutes. Okay, that was my favorite part of this whole goddamn match, was when they were actually in the ring having a match without cages or no disqualifications or whatever the fuck. I could have taken some more of that. But basically, that way Drew fucks the babyface in a straight match. It's the old Jerry Jarrett principle when everybody's dream match backfired. They would have thought that the babyface would win the straight wrestling match, so Drew cheats and wins. That's fine. But now they got the Falls Count Anywhere. But before we talk about that, what did you think about the little mini movie trailer of a match that they did here?
I was all right, I guess. I don't know. This whole thing rubbed me the wrong way.
Well, that's what you said.
You know what the problem is?
The massage parlor in Bergen.
You know what the problem is, honestly? The results got out before it aired. So I didn't go into this fresh. The results came out a few hours before this aired. So I knew where it was going because it was unavoidable. And I know the European fans love their wrestling, but God damn it, stay off the internet for a few hours until it airs in the States. Unless, of course, you have a Surfshark and you're in Canada. But that's the problem. I knew where it was going, so it was hard for me to it was hard for me to enjoy it.
See, you ought to be more like me and not give a shit about anything. And I didn't even know they were in Berlin, and didn't know the show happened before it happened, and didn't even watch the goddamn thing until the following morning, which was just a few hours ago. But that's the thing. It was just like, it was okay. I'd like to see some more of this, and it was over. But then became the Falls Count Anywhere. And immediately Drew pulls out a table and power bombs Cody through the table on the floor and gets a 2 count. I'm like, Christ, here we go. And they fought in the entranceway and all around ringside and over the rail into the people. And once again, it took a long time. It's not like it was as exciting as this. They tried. They were working hard. It wasn't silly in terms of like one of the AEW type of walk fights around the arena, but it was a walk fight around the arena into the stands, the standard shit. They go into the back of the arena and fight there. They, rattle each other off the garage doors. Then they go back into the arena where they're wasting some time. And Cody ran Drew into the bleachers, and put him on a table and climbed up, or went up to the top of the breezeway archway there and jumped off the bleachers and splashed him through the table and got a 2 count. And then they went back to ringside and Drew hit him with a chair a couple times and Cody cleared the desk off and crossroads him through the desk, 1, 2, 3. And that was an 8-minute match and they never used the ring. And now I'm like you were earlier. Now they've lost my interest. It's all this by the number. Well, here's the spot where we go and fight on the steps. And here's where we go back in the back and rattle each other off the garage door. And here's where we get fucking same shit that every jabroni does in every goddamn indie match.
Yeah, that's the problem too. Even the stuff that a few years back would have been the spectacular thing, we've seen that a bunch of times. Cody climbing up and jumping off. We've seen that exact spot from other people in both companies before.
Well, yeah, but besides that, that's what it is. It's a spot. It's 5 seconds. He jumped off the balcony and splashed him through the fucking table, and it wasn't even the finish, but it's 5 seconds. It took him 8 minutes of wandering around the goddamn arena to see that. I don't care. I was enjoying them exhibiting their talents in the fucking standard wrestling ring that we don't see often enough. But at least then, as I was saying, that flowed into the next thing because now Drew is down so Cody can drag him back into the ring and roll him in, and the cage can lower so that the heel is stuck, and they're 1-1. But now they've started the cage match. As we got 15 minutes on the air, they start the cage match in the middle where they're trying to start climbing or getting out or whatever. And they're back and forth, and at least the people now, because they know, well, this one's the one. So Drew started getting some heat, get some 2 counts, and then Cody hit a crossroads and got a big pop for a 2 count. And, hit a cutter and a couple of crossroadses, and Drew gouged the eyes. And then Cody dove at Drew, but hit the unpadded buckle. And Drew hit the Claymore. I got a 2 count. I'm like, son of a bitch. That was a world title change finish. The babyface champion has hit his finish twice and is going for the third, but the heel gouges his eyes. And when the blind babyface charges the heel, he moves and the babyface hits the buckle that the heel had taken the pad off of earlier, and then the heel hits his finish. That's the world title. That if they wanted Drew McIntyre to be a goddamn star, that's what they would have done. Do you see what do you hear me what I'm telling you?
Yeah, and again, this is another one of those things that we see all the time now. How many matches, even matches you don't like? How many matches have the perfect finish? The perfect finish. And then they just keep going another 10 minutes.
Yes. So instead, that's a 2 count. They both sell. They fight on top of the cage. Cody kind of does a cutter off the cage, 2 count, but it didn't land lovely. And they both crotch themselves on the top rope, trying to climb out of the cage. And then Drew is crawling for the door. And there's a hooded figure. And it's Jacob Fatu. And they stare at each other. And then Drew runs from him like he's seen a ghost and tries to climb out. And Jacob gets in the ring again. Right in front of the referee, which of course it's no disqualification. But you didn't used to have to worry about somebody interfering in front of the referee in a cage match, because you can't interfere in a cage match because the door shouldn't be open. This bogus ass WWF escape the cage shit. But normally you would be locked in the fucking cage, and if the guy did interfere, if the referee got knocked down, maybe somebody climbs in, whatever the fuck. But now he's just in the ring beating up one of the people in the match in front of the referee. And then when Cody wait a minute, what the fuck? He spins Fatu around and Jacob lays into Cody and beats him up. And while he's doing that, Drew crawls out the door and is the new champion, and ding, ding, ding. And then Drew's in the entranceway with the belt, laying there selling and, happy or whatever. And Jacob is staring at him, and Cody comes from behind and just gives Fatu like a weak shove into the cage, and Fatu sells it, goes down like he's knocked out. And then Cody just has to stare there. So why would you build this guy up as being the monster that just caused the title to change hands, and then Cody knocks him out with a two-handed shove from behind? I don't know what the fuck. I know obviously Jacob is a babyface, and that's going to be Drew's probably first program here, and Cody ain't going to be happy about all of this, but Jesus Christ on a cracker. I think if they wanted to put the belt on Drew, they did the perfect finish for it here, that the heat would go all on Drew, but they didn't capitalize on that. And now I'm not sure, how does Drew have any heat out of this? He crawled out by the skin of his teeth while one of the baby faces was beating up one of the other baby faces.
You're assuming that Jacob Fatu's still a babyface.
Well, why the fuck wouldn't he be?
He beat up Cody Rhodes. He cost Cody Rhodes the belt.
But here's... When last we saw him, was he not a babyface that everybody was cheering for because he's the wild fucking Samoan werewolf that gets over when he comes back? And the thing is, Cody spun him around like, what are you doing? And he fucking starts fighting Cody. But then when he turns around and sees that Drew's gone, that's his focus. But then if they're going to turn the guy heel, then would Cody have just shoved Jacob and Jacob take a bump and lay out? Or would Cody have spun him around again, and this time Jacob gets some goddamn heat on the vulnerable babyface champion that's just been fucked? So regardless of what they're doing, was this a shitty finish?
I wasn't crazy about it. I mean, I guess in terms of the Drew McIntyre storyline of always getting cheated and ripped off by everyone, the company and Roman Reigns and CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, he finally got one. You just said that when we reviewed the fact that he won Most Underrated and Most Pitiful in the South Korean Wrestling Awards. You said he's got to win one.
I don't mind being underrated, but when people think I'm pitiful.
You said he's got to win one. He's got to win one. And now he's got it by hook or by crook. He got it. Billy Graham had his feet on the ropes, he got the belt. And now we'll see where they go. I mean, I'm not excited about the prospect of a three-way feud with Cody and McIntyre and Fatu. I'm not excited about another Royal Rumble that Cody would have to win to get a title shot. But again, you have Elimination Chamber 2 right around the corner. We'll see. Will Drew McIntyre be the champion at WrestleMania? Will he be the champion when they leave Europe? We'll see what they do there, but uninspired finish, I guess, maybe, it felt.
Uninspired, that might be more than shitty. A better way to describe it. Uninspired, just all the stuff that always happens.
Well, there it is, new champion. Now CM Punk world champion on one show, and Drew McIntyre the champion on the other. We'll see what happens there, and Cody Rhodes, his title reign is over, and we'll see what happens there, and Jacob Fatu's back, and he's got Austin Theory's hood. We'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens on SmackDown over there.
We're going to see all the things that happen. And that's, what's that phrase I just came up with? All the things that always happen. That's what this show is about. We talk about all the things that always happen. And there'll be more of that coming up on the drive-thru in just a few days. And then, of course, the experience again here next week. And Brian, is there anything that you'd like to leave the fine Cult of Cornette audience with before we sign off for this week?
Well, we'll talk to you on the drive-thru, guest the program, retro figures, questions, and much more. And of course, we'll continue the top 20 in their 30s for 1984.
And until then, in the meantime and in between times, thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.